Six childhood friends grow into the strongest hunters to ever live, conquering various treasure vaults and obtaining prestigious relics. But their leader is the most mysterious of them all, housing the highest level, but it seems he has a secret to the madness. The anime opens with a flashback following six childhood friends all striving to become rich and famous, all agreeing to become heroes together living in the imperial capital of Zabridia. In the present, our MC Cry Andre reveals the importance of treasure hunters as they're placed in a high regard and are tasked with retrieving relics within treasure vaults around the world, all while slaying creatures known as phantoms. Cry is seen visiting the clan First Step, intrigued as they're holding interviews for new members. Plus, clans are unique since they're meant to be a collection of parties. Cry admits that he had failed in the past to get strong, but as Cry lines up to enter the building, he is suddenly greeted by Ruda Runbeck, a level 3 hunter. Runda says Cry seems the most approachable out of everyone in line. But sadly, Cry has no interest in making friends, surprised to hear Runda had been going solo up until now, but needs help conquering the White Wolf's Den treasure vault. Runda says she wants to find a party to conquer said vault, but Greg Zangief, a level 4 hunter, speaks up, mocking Runda for attempting the White Wolf's Den solo at level 3. Greg says Runda will be considered an amateur in the First Step clan, advising her to go home, but this causes Runda to ready her blades preparing to duel Greg. Luckily, while Simon orders everyone to stop, reassuring Cry as he seems to be strangely keeping his face hidden from others. Heading inside, Runda is amazed at the assortment of hunters present, learning that Cry has visited the place 5 times already, feeling bad for him. Cry says people with talent will easily climb the ranks, whilst those without cling on to what they have. But Runda asks why a crowd is forming. Something Cry knows is due to Arc Brave members being present. Apparently, Arc Brave is the strongest party present, and they even managed to complete a level 7 vault with only 6 members. Arc Rodan is the leader, housing a hunter level of 7. But rumor has it that no one has ever been recruited by them at these events. Runda wonders why there is a table vacant, prompting Greg to appear again, scolding Runda for not knowing that the table belongs to the party that first founded First Step, the Grievers. The Grievers were a bunch of kids that came to the capital and shocked the world with their skills, ultimately forming the Grieving Souls Party, and is coincidentally a party composed of Cry's childhood friends. Greg suspects that the Grievers are recruiting people, hence the big event. But out of nowhere, Gilbert Bush demands to meet the Grievers, crying that his level 4 status should grant him a spot in the party. Stepping up, Tino Shade, a level 4 hunter, prepares to silence Gilbert, but Lyle tries calming Tino down. Tino says her mentor would have done the same, but Lyle says the Vice Master will get angry if something happens at the event. Sadly, the crowd encourages the brawl, making room as Gilbert draws his sword, all whilst Tino begins bouncing in place. Cry orders Runda to leave the building as it's about to get messy. But as Tino draws her blade ready to clash with Gilbert, she suddenly detects someone familiar nearby. Having noticed Cry in the crowd, Tino completely ignores the duel, allowing Gilbert to attack the air, all whilst Tino rushes towards Cry, frightening and uncovering his identity as the leader of the Grievers. Apparently, the Grievers are a 6-man army with Cry being their leader, the strongest out of the bunch. Flashing back, we see Cry and his party taking on beginner vaults in record time, but on a particular day, Cry was rescued by one of his childhood friends. Cry found it strange that his 5 party members excelled monstrously compared to himself, so Cry reasoned he should leave as he would only be holding them back. Surprisingly, Cry was offered the position of leader in their group, but Cry had never asked for such a thing, cutting to the present where Greg and Runda are in disbelief that Cry is the clan master of First Step. Ark is seen trying to start a conversation with Cry, but Tino immediately calls out Ark for having ulterior motives, prompting Ark to commend Cry for observing the crowd with a disguise. Cry tries telling everyone that he simply overslept and tried sneaking into the event afterwards, but Ark seems to be giving Cry more credit than he deserves, something Cry had experienced his entire life. Tino continues to be protective of Cry. Something Cry knows is due to Tino being an apprentice of Liz Smart, one of Cry's childhood friends. Ark takes the chance to ask if Cry has any recommendations in mind, and seeing as Cry isn't accepting any members for his party, Ark says he'll take anyone as long as Cry recommends them himself. Cry feels bad seeing Ark's party members glaring at him, but keeping his word, Cry realizes Tino won't join any other party than his, so Cry calls out to Gilbert, declaring that he'll join Ark's party. Cry does add one condition, reminding Gilbert that the most important thing for hunters is to not lose, so Cry will personally gauge Gilbert's power. Cry declares to everyone that he has never lost a fight, uttering under his breath that he has never actually participated in a real fight before, but Cry continues by removing one of his rings, announcing that anyone who retrieves the ring will be recommended to Ark Brave. As Cry flicks the ring into the crowd, Gilbert is the first to catch it, but Tino follows up by monstrously kicking Gilbert aside. Tino is seen looking for the ring, all whilst the crowd of hunters chase after it as well. But to motivate the crowd more, Cry says the ring is a relic and whoever obtains it can keep it. With the crowd distracted, Cry makes his leave, but as we cut to the next day, Cry is seen at the First Steps clan house. Eva Renfi, the vice clan master, reports that the building of the meetup yesterday is in ruin thanks to Cry's appearance. So the Explorers Association wants to speak with Cry. Cry says that since Ark is quite easygoing, they'll have Ark pay for the damages plus Ark can speak with the Explorer Association. Eva feels bad since Cry is pushing all the responsibilities onto Ark, but Cry says branch manager Ark is a scary person. Plus Cry can't go outside seeing as his disguised relic, reversible face, have been broken and he doesn't want to be attacked. Eva questions if Cry gets attacked often, finally convincing Cry to visit Gark. But funnily enough, Cry deeply apologizes for the damages at the event, reassuring Gark Welter, the Explorers Association's branch manager, that no one was hurt. Seeing Cry so sorry, Kanan hands Cry a book filled with jobs no hunters want, jobs known as chores. Not wanting the hassle, Cry gets serious, agreeing to take on a chore to make up for the commotion he caused. Cry searches for a chore he can pass on to Ark, only to stumble onto a level 3 rescue mission. As Cry leaves, Gark is impressed Cry picked out the most dangerous job out of the bunch, cutting over to Cry, who is horrified to hear that Ark is busy at the moment. Tino takes the chance to show off the ring she managed to retrieve at the event, but seeing as it's the perfect opportunity, Cry asks if Tino would join him for a chore. Before Tino can flee, Cry binds Tino with his hounding chain, something that disappoints Tino. Tino cries that she is still only level 4, and seeing as the quest is in the White Wolf's den, Cry calls for Runda, Greg, and Gilbert to assist Tino. Cutting back 6 years, we see a younger Cry and his party visiting the Explorers Association, a place known as the Treasure Hunters headquarters. When Cry got cold feet and tried backing out, Luke Cycle took charge and kicked down the association's doors, demanding to challenge the strongest swordsman they had. Liz Smart also introduced herself as the greatest thief in the world, asking where they could all register as treasure hunters. But Cry began to feel sick at how fast things were moving. When Cry went to register his party, he was asked to assign a name and a crest to his party, and seeing as this is the perfect chance to deter his members from continuing on as heroes, Cry chose Grieving Souls with a skull as their crest. Immediately, the others were against such a name and crest, but upon hearing Cry suggest he step down as leader, the others agreed to accept Cry's decision to prevent him from leaving. In the present, Cry had visited Runda, Greg, and Gilbert, all still speechless to see that Cry is the level 8 hunter with the title of Thousand Tricks. Apparently, hunters that obtain a title are highly regarded, but Gilbert refuses to accept such a wimpy man like Cry to be the capital's strongest. Cry tries calming Gilbert down, asking if the trio would like to accompany Tino on her chore, but Gilbert refuses to listen to Cry, forcing Cry to recruit Greg and Runda only. Cry says Tino is free to take any other from the clan but himself, but before Cry leaves, Gilbert demands to challenge Cry, offering to go if he loses. With Cry getting serious, he says that since Tino is the leader, she'll be the one to make Gilbert submit. With the challengers getting ready, we see Tino showing off her flexibility to Cry, but Gilbert is more fixated on defeating Tino so he can duel Cry. Tino reminds Gilbert that Cry is level 8 compared to a fly like Gilbert, who is level 4, But to make things fair, Tino says she won't be using any of her weapons. Cry says that although Tino and Gilbert are both level 4, Tino should be slightly stronger since she has battle experience. But Gilbert's Purgatorial Sword relic could be an issue. Surprisingly, Gilbert tosses aside his sword to match Tino, but before the duel starts, Tino demands to get ice cream with Cry if she wins. With Cry agreeing, Tino starts the duel by lunging towards Gilbert, missing a strike to his head only to launch him aside with a spinning kick. Sadly, Gilbert refuses to give in, charging at Tino, but she simply replies with a leg lock, demanding that Gilbert apologize to Cry as she tightens her hold on Gilbert. Pissed, Gilbert breaks out of Tino's bind, but is put to sleep shortly after by a decisive strike to the neck. With Tino asking for praise from Cry, Gilbert is seen barely conscious, revealing that at a very young age, he wielded a sword and defeated many adults with his swordplay, even heading to the capital and managing to conquer many treasure vaults at such a young age. In the present, Tino advises Gilbert to pick up his sword if he wants to win, but Gilbert's pride refuses to let him. Gilbert admits that he wasn't as strong as he thought, suddenly hearing Cry say he knows Gilbert left his original party since he was too strong for them, shocking Gilbert as he wonders what Cry truly is capable of. Intrigued by Gilbert's blade, Cry nonchalantly heads over to inspect it, but before even grasping the blade, huge amounts of flames engulf Cry, horrifying Gilbert as Cry is able to draw out more power from the Purgatorial blade. In this world, mana material is said to be the core substance, and treasure vaults are phenomenons when mana is condensed along with ley lines. Till this day, there are things to be discovered, and the White Wolf's Den is a treasure vault with many mysteries, a site originally inhabited by silver moon wolves. It wasn't until the wolves were hunted for their fur that the location became a vault and wolf phantoms started appearing, the primary reason why Cry refuses to take on the chore. Seeing Eva worried, Cry says Tino's 4-man party can easily take on the job, but Eva is more curious about the spectacle that happened with Gilbert's sword. Cry cryptically says it was a simple trick even Gilbert could have pulled off, but Cry gets distracted admiring his relic rings and Gilbert's relic sword, annoying Eva as she reminds Cry that he can't be buying whatever relics he pleases. Cry reveals that his party members equally split any profit, feeling bad since he gets paid even though he doesn't do any work, but seeing as his relics are dead, Cry heads over to get them charged. Sitting down with some party members, Cry has his gear charged, only to hear reports of wayward phantoms appearing northwards, destroying an entire caravan. Apparently, even level 3 guards couldn't stop the phantom, and now the Knights of the Third Order are dead set on exterminating the threat, especially since it looked like a wolf and was near the White Wolf's Den. The gang suspect the den must have created such a creature, freaking Cry out when he hears that Rudolph Devount, a level 5 party, went missing in the den checking the job again. Cry realizes it was a rescue mission for Rudolph and his 5 other level 5 hunters, but as Cry tells the others that he sent Tino to retrieve the missing party, the duo fear Tino won't make it back. Cry chooses to excuse himself, wondering if Gilbert charged his sword before heading out, but at the same time, we see Tino and her party deep in a forest. Tino reminds the gang that such a mission won't be easy, hence why they were asked to write their wills, but Greg fears that their 4-man party is too random to take on any extraordinary quests. Tino corrects Greg, declaring that Cry is far more calculating than anyone they've met, inspiring the gang to continue forward as they have full faith in Cry's decision to give them the job. At the same time, we see Cry about to puke, blaming himself for sending Tino and the gang on an impossible mission. Seeing as he has to right his wrong, Cry heads over to open a secret passage near a bookshelf, reasoning he should stop the gang and hand over the job to someone else more qualified. At night, we see the gang making good progress through the woods, but suddenly a phantom attacks them. Greg is mortified to see the creature equipped with armor and a sword, but Tino cries that they must overcome such a creature. Back with Cry, we see him sifting through his assortments of relics, stashing up on items he may need, but before he can head out, Eva asks what he is doing. Eva is happy to see Cry is worried about Tino and the others, but spots Cry wearing a citry slime, an item that violates Imperial law. Just like that, Cry heads onto his balcony, activating his Night Hiker relic only to rocket towards the gang. Flashing back, we see Cry's newly formed Grieving Souls party reporting on their first week of vault hunting, all amazed that they encountered a level 4 Cyclops in a level 1 vault. Overhearing their conversation, a drunk adventurer accuses the kids of lying, but the man is shocked to see the gang have brought back the monster's head. Working together, Tino and her party manage to slay the phantom before them, but they're confused as to why such a creature appeared near a level 3 vault. Tino asks why Gilbert didn't use any flame magic, but Gilbert admits that his blade is out of mana, making Runda suggest they retreat for now. Tino stands strong, declaring that they'll continue on no matter what. Plus, they must hurry since the people they need to rescue might still be alive, egging the others to follow after Tino. With the gang making it to the entrance of the vault, they notice multiple wolf monsters decked out in bows and guns, and it seems their larger bodies are forcing them to remain outside and stand guard. Gilbert suggests that he rush head-on into the swarm and get rid of their weapons, but Tino calls Gilbert a fool, declaring that it's her duty to ensure everyone makes it back alive. Tino says herself and Runda will use their speed to draw the monsters towards them, and only then will Greg and Gilbert attack them, rendering their long-ranged weapons useless. At the same time, we see Cry soaring through the air to reach Tino as fast as he can, all whilst the gang begin making their way into the vault, slowly carving through the wolves they face. Tino is impressed by the others' abilities, glad to see they all have a sense of teamwork as Gilbert and Greg are relatively strong and have experience fighting. Runda, on the other hand, understand how she can distract and locate enemies, allowing Tino to deal any finishing blows, a party Tino wholeheartedly believes Cry had designed intentionally. As Gilbert clashes blades with the enemy, he is reminded of the moment he left his team, feeling a little bad since he outgrew them quite quickly. With Gilbert a little distracted, Greg charges the wolf Gilbert is dueling, allowing Gilbert to execute the monster. Moving deeper into the vault, Tino begins inspecting the surroundings, only to report a strong presence nearby that belongs to the boss. Seeing Greg a little panicked, Tino orders Greg to stand his guard and grow from facing strong monsters, something Greg admits he isn't used to, as he tends to flee from jobs when the obstacle in front of him is too great. Greg says he has seen many friends pass during his time as an adventurer, something Tino sympathizes with, but Tino reminds the others that Cry intentionally put them together. When Runda asks why she was selected, Tino gets jealous at Runda's figure, accusing Runda of seducing Cry with her breast, but regardless, the gang ventures deeper. Back with Cry, we see him scouring the forest from the skies, freaking out as he wonders where Tino and her party are. Unable to stop the flight relic, Cry has no choice but to fly into the vault in search of the gang. But as this happens, we see our gang come face to face with a monstrous wolf boss. Immediately, the gang are forced to play defensively, weaving and running away from the boss's strikes. But Tino notices that the boss has no protection around its skull. Stealing their resolve, Gilbert takes charge by blocking the boss's axe, prompting Greg to help distract the creature by slashing at it from behind. With both Runda and Tino running circles around the boss, Greg almost gets caught by the boss's axe, but luckily Runda tackles him to safety. Seeing an opening, Tino scales the boss's massive body, enduring a slash to the leg in order to make it to the boss's neck, only to plunge her blade into the creature's neck. With a lethal blow dealt, the gang watches as the boss disintegrates, all celebrating as Tino patches up her leg wound. Seeing as Greg lost his blade during the boss fight, Tino hands Greg her own blade. But before they can make plans to search for the lost hunters, a sudden projectile is tossed towards Tino's heart, something she barely manages to dodge. Seeing several other wolves emerge from a deeper section of the vault, Tino wonders if there are multiple bosses in the dungeon, wondering what Cry had in mind for them. Unable to fight at the moment, Tino orders everyone to flee into a crack in the cave, but sadly, one of the wolves rush to block them off. Greg and Gilbert say they'll distract the monsters whilst the girls flee, but Tino racks her brain for a solution, suddenly reminded of the ring she got from Cry. Refusing to leave anyone behind, The gang rally together to take down the wolf guarding the crack, first distracting and attacking the wolf from below, only for Runda to toss some projectiles at the wolf's eyes to blind it. Following up, we see Tino reminded of a time when Cry had taught her how to use one of his rings, and now using that knowledge, Tino uses the ring to launch a bright projectile into the wolf's eyes. With the creature blinded, Gilbert tries going in for the finishing blow, but Tino cries for Gilbert to stop, ultimately watching as Gilbert is blown into the nearby walls. Tino blames herself for not being more specific with her commands, all gazing up to see the wolves glaring at them, finally giving in as they have nothing left. Before the wolves can attack, a powerful projectile sends the wolves flying, revealed to be Cry, who has arrived just in time, glad to see everyone is fine. Strangely, the wolves are quite wary of Cry's presence, and when one wolf tries slashing at Cry, a mysterious veil nullifies the attack. Smirking, Cry announces that he has 17 lives, swiftly conjuring several magic balls aimed at one of the wolves. As Cry's projectiles land perfectly onto the wolf, the gang are amazed to bear witness to a level 8's power, but surprisingly the wolf afflicted by Cry's powers is still alive. Cry admits that his magic balls are just shooting rings meant for show, beginning to freak out as the wolves before him are creatures he's never seen before. Seeing no other choice, Cry launches his special item around his neck into the air, only to ignite it to create a smoke screen. With everyone ordered to run, the gang are grateful to Cry for running in the rear guard since Tino is hurt, but Cry says he didn't mean to, as he is just slow. Tino is reminded of the first time she met Cry, flashing back to a time when a young Tino was almost captured by some thugs, but suddenly Cry and his party showed up unintentionally rescuing her. Having made it to safety, Cry commends Tino for staying alive up until now, and seeing as Tino is injured, Cry makes use of a healing relic to instantly patch up her leg wound. Seeing as escape is their #1 priority, Cry takes the lead and begins escorting the gang through the cave, but secretly he has no idea where he is going. In the past, Cry had shown off all the relics he collected to his party, making his party jealous as they wanted Cry to pick out a relic for each of them. Some of the girls were curious about a particular magic bag that could store an infinite amount of items, but Cry says it can only store chocolate. Liz had put on a mysterious ring, an item Cry is impressed didn't tear Liz's body into pieces. As for Luke, he picked up a curse sword, but was able to stop himself from going crazy. As the gang follows Cry, he says the White Wolf Den is impossible to navigate since it's like a maze, and every time Cry turns to check the flank, so does everyone else. Gilbert speaks up, asking what Cry's plan is, but Tino butts in stating that they must figure out what Cry is thinking themselves. Tino also adds that the direction they're heading is the opposite of the exit, annoying Cry, but regardless, they continue onwards. As they reach a fork in their path, Cry attempts to go one direction, but the others suddenly scream that they can sense the lost hunters nearby, something that even surprises Cry. The gang are happy to see Rudolph and his members are barely alive, and seeing as everyone is famished, Cry makes use of his magic bag, feeding everyone some chocolate. Tino can't help but gobble up the chocolate, admiring how calm and cool Cry is. But as Greg speaks with Rudolph, Rudolph reports that a single phantom with a skull covering its entire face wiped out his entire party. Rudolph suspects that the soul hatred incarnate embodies the lingering curse of the Silver Moon, and is a creature on par with Thousand Swords, the capital's strongest swordsman. Cry recognizes the swordsman to be one of his childhood friends, Luke Cycle, a level 6 hunter. Cry doubts the creature can actually be that strong, but seeing as their current party isn't capable of taking on such a creature, Cry says they should escape for now, allowing Tino to take it from here. Tino starts by leading the gang back to the boss chamber they fled from, and with everyone agreeing to make it out alive, Cry notes how he only has 5 safety rings left, meaning a 6th strike will be lethal for him. Cry also knows that his remaining relics won't even phase the enemy, but when the gang spot a monstrous entity approaching them, they all ready their weapons. Cry realizes he can use his Night Hiker to dive the attacker and sacrifice one of his lives. But when the actual boss appears, its sheer aura sends shivers down everyone's spine. Strangely, a second masked figure appears behind the phantom, instantly kicking it into a nearby wall. Someone Cry recognizes as Liz. Liz first asks if the people with Cry are new members, but Cry reassures Liz they aren't, pleasing Liz as she removes her mask. Liz gets annoyed seeing as the others don't recognize her. Plus, Liz revealed that she had to come get Cry, feeling ashamed as Liz had entrusted that Tino would be able to handle missions on her own, choosing to glare at Tino, who tries hiding behind Cry. When Gilbert tries diffusing the tension, Liz monstrously kicks him into the wall, turning back to face Tino, only to question if Tino was someone she should have taken up as an apprentice in the first place. With Tino unable to do anything but sincerely apologize, Cry is forced to step in, finally able to calm Liz down. With the boss recovering and another wolf appearing, Liz is forced to silence the creatures, ruining her moment with Cry, choosing to equip her mask as the enemies spray her down with bullets. Activating her technique, Liz manages to slow down time, nonchalantly catching and nullifying the gun spray. Liz takes the chance to educate Tino on how to slay armored creatures, uttering that Tino must simply slay them whilst they're in their armor, demonstrating by slashing up the armored wolf with a single kick. Seeing the boss thrust its blade towards her, Liz chooses to catch the blade, demanding to know why Tino found the boss so difficult to defeat, as Liz herself lands a disgusting knee onto the boss. Liz continues by dragging and slamming the boss into the ground, reminding Tino that she is far too weak and that she needs to grow stronger if she even wants to compare to Liz herself. Unable to handle the criticism, Tino begins to cry, something that makes Cry feel bad for her. As Liz finishes off the boss, Cry reveals that Luke and Liz used to spar each other constantly, and is the reason why they're so strong today. Plus, Liz is the fastest thing to exist in this world, moving faster than her shadow, can keep up, hence her title of Stifled Shadow, the level 6 hunter. With Liz now calm, she jumps into Cry's arms, happy to see Cry again. Back at home, Gilbert is seen handing over his blade to Cry, telling Tino and the others that he plans to rejoin his former party and grow stronger alongside them, with the goal of reaching Liz's strength in the future. In the past, Cry had accidentally placed orders for masks without eye holes, but his party had believed Cry had intentionally left out the eye holes to make them stronger. In the present, Liz sleeps soundly all whilst Cry seems to be looking for something, wondering if he should give up on his search. Flashing back 1 year, Citri Smart, a level 2 hunter with the Alchemist class, had entrusted Cry with handling a slime she created. Being the genius of the Grievers, with the title of Prodigy, the slime Citri gifted Cry is capable of destroying the entire capital. In the present, Cry says he had lost the slime, and when he had tried using the slime in the wolf den, it was already missing, so Cry reasons it was always empty to begin with. As Cry tries to forget about this slime, we cut to some hunters exploring the wolf den, having heard from the association that there are anomalies that lie dormant in the den. Unable to sleep all night, Cry drags himself throughout the building, only to run into Eva, who wants Cry to make a report on the wolf's den, seeing as Tino is training with Liz. Cry asks if Eva can check if a possible slime may be wreaking havoc in the capital, but first Cry heads to check out Tino's training. As Cry leaves for the basement floor, Eva admits that Cry has the special foresight to predict the future with his guesses, something even Cry isn't aware of. In front of Tino's training room, Cry runs into Sven Anger, a level 6 hunter and the leader of the Obsidian Cross Party. Sven asks Cry to convince Liz to give them the training room, but Cry apologizes since Liz came home earlier than expected, having gotten bored of disarming traps in Night Palace, a level 8 vault, and simply returned home. Sven cries that Tino will be slain if Cry doesn't intervene, but although Cry is skeptical, he enters the training room only to see Tino completely knocked out. Liz seems to be pissed that Tino is not trying harder, preparing to end Tino with a lethal kick, but Cry suddenly orders Liz to stop. Liz says she is simply drawing out Tino's true strength, annoyed seeing Tino not trying whatsoever. But Cry reasons Liz should give Tino a break, something that ultimately convinces Liz to cease her training. Strangely, Cry's voice awakens Tino, prompting her to get back up, freaking Cry out when he sees Tino has the Griever's mask on. Unable to stop the girls, Cry heads back outside to apologize to Sven since he won't get to use the room. But Sven says he understands Tino's yearn to get stronger. In the meantime, Sven tells Cry about the phantom sightings up north. The same story Cry heard regarding the Knight's Order getting crushed. Cry is annoyed that Ark isn't here to deal with the mess, especially since Ark is a far more qualified leader than himself. But Cry suddenly gets an idea, suggesting that Sven and his Obsidian Cross party should investigate up north. Just like that, Cry manages to pass on a dangerous job to more qualified hunters. But as Cry leaves, Henrik Hefner questions why Cry always remains at base. Sven admits that Cry is strange, but Sven vouches for Cry, uttering that Cry is a monster within, warning Henrik to not underestimate Cry. That night, Gark and Kana discuss the ever-changing White Wolf's den, both unsure what caused the anomaly in the den. When Gark says he'll speak to Cry the next day, Kana says that the Obsidian Cross will be tasked with investigating the den, but Gark wonders if Cry is hiding things from them. Elsewhere, we follow several hooded figures and their leader, Noctis Cochlear, belonging to the Grand Master of Mages who researched the Akashic Tower. The men utter that the experiment they've been working on is able to draw in huge amounts of mana and artificially create a treasure vault, but the men agree to keep things under wraps in fear of Cry discovering their location. They mention that Sophia Black, Noctis' talented underling, will return soon and help with completion of the experiment, but in the meantime the men are tasked with gathering information. Elsewhere, we see a massive slime roaming and destroying the capital. But luckily, it's revealed to be one of Cry's nightmares. Feeling someone in the sheets with him, Cry calls out to Liz, who asks if Cry is free today, and seeing as both Tino and Liz don't have training today, Cry agrees to hang out with Liz for the day. At the entrance of the base, we see Gark greeting the receptionist, only to spot Cry with Liz. Gark reminds Liz that she is meant to report to him when she returns from vaults greater than level 7. But Liz snaps back, accusing Gark of using Cry for himself, something that agitates Gark. When Liz fires off a kick at Gark, Gark easily blocks the strike, holding back his anger as he warns Liz to not piss him off. As both Gark and Liz's auras swell, they both begin to brawl, all whilst Cry and Kana head upstairs for a more mellow chat. Kana tells Cry about the ley lines and strange mana gathering around the wolf's den, but Cry says this isn't the thing that concerns him, as he secretly knows he must track down where he lost Citri's slime. Kana get a little annoyed hearing that Cry will be remaining at the base, but as we cut back to Gark and Liz, we see Liz taunting and mocking Gark for becoming weaker since they last fought. Liz manages to dance circles around Gark, even giving him a chance to surrender, but this finally makes Gark snap as he begins infusing his body with mana. In the distance, Cry utters that Gark used to be a level 7 hunter with the title of War Demon, and luckily before people are harmed in their little bout, Cry calls for the two demons to stop fighting. Although Gark doesn't want to stop, Liz instantly rushes to Cry's side, a speed even Gark wasn't able to follow, ultimately convincing Gark to leave for today. Later that evening, Eva returns, mortified to see the state of their building, all whilst Liz and Cry start their date. Liz takes the chance to mock Gark's pathetic strength earlier, but Cry reminds Liz that she is far stronger than normal individuals. Shocked to hear that Liz didn't even consider the boss she fought in the wolf's den a worthy opponent. Cry wishes for the others to return, soon seeing as he may need to speak to Citri about the missing slime. But seeing Cry so serious, Liz asks what is on his mind. Cry asks what Liz would do if the entirety of Zabridia was wiped out, but Liz cries she would run away with Cry and visit the sea. Before Cry can adore how innocent Liz is, Cry notices Liz has run off to restrain someone. Someone Liz noticed was spying on them. Cry asks Liz to let the man go so they can have a chat, but the man takes the chance to run away, something Liz believed was intentional by Cry. As Liz and Cry resume their date, the man is left alone wondering how he was captured in the first place and why he was let go. Cutting to Sven and his party, we see that Gark has entrusted them with the investigation into the White Wolf's den, something that annoyed Sven as he wonders what Cry is scheming. Back with Cry, we see he is with Liz, who believes they're on a date, but Cry is more stressed seeing as they're walking through the most dangerous neighborhood in the capital. with the locals immediately recognizing Liz. Liz asks Cry why they're investigating, but Cry utters that he is simply investigating disappearances, fearing that it may be Citri's slime's doing. Cry also mentions how there's a new ice cream shop that opened nearby, exciting Liz as she chooses to enjoy her time with Cry, but off in the distance, we see the man spying on them prior freaking out. It's revealed that the man actually owns the new ice cream shop Cry is coincidentally heading to now, plus the store is home to one of their research facilities. Before the man can panic and close up shop, he suddenly notices that Sophia Black has returned, but right on cue, Liz bangs on the entrance of their ice cream store. Liz is pissed since she knows the store was open a minute ago. But before Liz can break down the doors, Cry reasons they should head home, relieving the man who is hiding inside with Sophia. At the base, Liz feels sorry for Cry since they weren't able to enjoy some ice cream together. But Cry notes how things aren't too bad since there haven't been reports of slime rampaging yet. Cry does ask if Liz knows when Citri is getting back, but seeing as Citri brought a lot of things with her, Liz says it'll take a while. Cry chooses to brace himself for the worst just in case. But suddenly Eva appears, reporting the people she had selected to investigate the Wolf Denver. Cry doesn't mind who goes, hearing that Sven and his party have already left, and the remainder along with a relic expert will join them tomorrow. Cry wonders why so many people are being sent back to the den, but regardless asks Eva to proceed as she sees fit. But in the meantime, we cut to Noctis, who praises Cry for uncovering their hideout in the slums. The other hooded men begin to panic, cursing Cry for leaving and mocking them once he discovered their ice cream hideout. But Noctis calms everyone down, asking Sophia what she thinks will be best for them. Sophia smirks, declaring that the defensive system she has built should be an interesting tool to test out against the Grievers. And seeing as they all believe Cry has uncovered what they're planning, Noctis allows Sophia to go wild and take care of things. The next day, we see Tino taking a bath, surprised to see she has no bruises, believing that Liz soaked her in healing potions after she was beaten to the brink of death. Heading to the base, Tino spots several carriages outside, hearing from Lyle that Cry had originally requested that Ark be deployed to the Wolf's Den, but seeing as Ark isn't available, they had to overcompensate with multiple weaker hunters. Tino wonders if the den had become more dangerous since they last stepped foot in it. But just then Cry appears, asking why so many people have gathered. Eva says they're the people she gathered since Ark couldn't make it, but Cry worries that deploying so many people will cost a fortune, asking if Eva could cut down the people being sent by half. Hearing this, the crowd begins to despair seeing as Cry is sending them to their deaths. But Cry reassures everyone that a measly level 3 vault is nothing. Seeing the crowd even more panicked than ever, Cry hears that Gark has pulled together additional funding to pay the hunters, but Cry wonders if the Citri slime could be in the Wolf's Den. Cry chooses to allow the hunters to be deployed as normal, but his change of attitude freaks out the crowd, and to make things worse, Liz appears declaring that she wouldn't have taken half of the hunters gathered here, seeing how pathetic they all are. When the crowd accuses Liz of not understanding them since she is a genius, Liz snaps back, pointing out how disgusting and worthless they all sound, choosing to leap towards Cry's location only to ask if she and Tino can take on the job. Cry immediately refuses, fearing that Tino will suffer, so Cry says the hunters gathered will proceed as planned, but suddenly Eva asks if Cry will be leading the hunters during their investigation. As the crowd begins cheering for Cry, Cry is coerced into leading the group, and seeing as he has no way out, Cry agrees to go, but he says Sven will take charge until Cry himself shows up. Cry secretly plans to show up only when everything is wrapping up, cutting over to Sven, who seems to be making good progress through the den, but they wonder why their phantom encounters have been weak up until now. With everyone heading outside and boarding the carriages, Cry manages to convince Liz to stay put at the base, only for Cry to instruct Lyle to look out for any slimes on their journey. Just like that, the hunters set off first without Cry. But as we cut over to Noctis, we see him and his men discover that many hunters are heading in their direction. Noctis orders his men to stand strong, but Flick Petson fears they won't stand a chance against the Grievers. Sophia corrects Flick, declaring that her defenses against the 3 Grievers present in the capital are already in place. Plus, Sophia is confident that her defenses will stop Liz's attacks, and her tricks can stifle Cry's genius brain. Noctis asks what Sophia will do about Citri the alchemist, but upon hearing that name, Sophia becomes enraged, declaring Citri to be her nemesis, and that she doesn't even compare to someone like Sophia herself. Seeing Sophia fired up, Noctis orders his men to follow Sophia's commands. But back with Sven, we see that his party has yet to run into anything strange. With Henrik once again doubting Cry's reason for sending them here, Sven suddenly gets a message, only to order for everyone to evacuate with a whistle. Outside, Sven is mocked for evacuating everyone after receiving word to look out for a slime. But as Gain and other hunters mock Sven's decision, Sven corrects them. Sven says members of the Grievers would have never warned the others of the disaster, something that shuts up Gain and the other hunters as they realize Sven was only being safe and will resume their mission once reinforcements arrive. Gain questions why a slime would be such an issue, but Sven recounts a time when Cry had asked him to go cherry blossom viewing, and strangely Cry had asked Sven to bring his weapon. When they arrived at the cherry blossoms, the trees had suddenly become a treasure vault, a location commonly known as Prism Garden, and is an example of Cry being able to predict the future. At home base, Liz is seen jumping at any excuse to head to the den, dead set on showing how strong she's gotten to Cry. Cry says he needs to time things perfectly, but out of nowhere Citri appears, asking if Cry needs help with anything. Citri suddenly mentions how they need to crush a dangerous force before they gain too much power. But at the same time, we see Gark suiting up ready to head to the wolf's den, as well to prove to Liz he's still a warrior, only for Citri to appear, asking for a favor from him. In the past, Citri had told Cry that she wanted to take on a different role compared to the others in their party, a decision that Cry ultimately encouraged Citri to make. Heading to the secret room, Citri points out how rapidly the Citri slime could evolve and adapt, something that scares Cry. But Citri says she had taught the slime to leave herself and Cry alone. Cry takes the chance to tell Citri that her slime is missing, but this makes Citri immediately investigate how it went missing, suspecting it must have escaped through the drain in the room's bathroom. Citri says she'll deal with the slime, all whilst Cry handles a different issue. But as we cut over to Lal, who greets Sven, Lal passes on Cry's orders to have Sven command the hunters whilst he is gone. Seeing as Liz won't be an issue, Sven rallies together the troops, asking if the hunters are ready to deal with slimes. Immediately, the hunters point out that any weapon at their disposal should deal with such a harmless creature. But this annoys Sven as he wishes Cry was more specific about the threat at hand. Gain takes the chance to mock Sven for stalling their mission once more, but this time the surrounding hunters laugh at Gain for going against Cry's warning. At that moment, Talia Widna, an alchemist that had supposedly been working with Citri on her slime investigations, presents a tube specially designed to slay slimes. Following Noctis, he is seen being fed information regarding the hunters at the Wolf's Den, with numbers totaling just under 100 and only a few have titles. As Sven starts the operation, he chooses to send small parties into the den, ordering them to whistle and communicate if anything happens. But sadly, after a whole day of searching, Sven is baffled to have not encountered anything but phantom wolves in the Denver. With so many injured, Sven wonders if Cry was wrong, all whilst Gain voices how disappointed he is in Sven. Luckily, Sven stays resilient, wanting to see the mission till the very end. But as night falls, we see Gain heading into the woods to take a leak. Whilst Gain is berating how spineless Sven is, he suddenly hears a strange noise nearby, choosing to investigate it before sounding his whistle. In the distance, Gain notices two hooded figures standing before a monstrous wolf, listening in as Hose and Tage discuss plans to further inject the creature with a strange substance. Before the hooded men can act, Gain rushes towards the men, announcing himself as a hunter only to begin beating up the hooded men. Gain chooses to take out Tage first, but whilst he is distracted, Hose manages to inject the creature with the syringe, forcing it to undergo a mutation. In mere moments, the creature's body begins to melt and ooze like a slime. And as the creature roars, we cut back to Sven and the others who hear a whistle out in the woods. Recognizing the whistle, Sven immediately orders all the hunters to ready themselves for whatever is in the forest, all whilst Talia follows the gang. With Sven counting his troops, he hears that Gain was last seen in the forest, but luckily Gain appears to have lost an arm but had managed to escape. Not too soon after, a disgusting ooze-like slime emerges from the forest clearing, prompting Sven to fire an arrow at the creature, but it doesn't faze the creature. As the creature worms its way towards the hunters, they try their best to barrage the creature with various magic spells, all whilst Henrik begins healing Gain. Gain reports that strange men in hoods injected a phantom to create the slime, and seeing as Sven's attacks, nor any physical or magical spells are working on the monster, Sven orders for the hunters to evade and box in the slime. Seeing the creature devouring several hunters, Sven asks Talia to hand over the slime slaying vial, only to begin leading the slime away from the others. Seeing the slime bounce after him, Sven uses the opening to sneak the vial onto the creature's landing point, only to watch the vial blow up within the slime. Sadly, such a small explosion doesn't faze the creature as it tanks the explosion only to continue its march towards the hunters. With Sven out of ideas, he racks his brain for a solution, only to be surprised to see that Citri has arrived, uttering that the slime before them nullifies magic. Citri says that Cry had allowed her to take charge of the mission, revealing that the slime before them is encased in a force field that negates all attacks. And seeing as the creature is melting, Citri suspects it's trying to replenish its mana, hence why it targets beings with the most absorbed mana like herself. Citri feels sorry for the Phantom as it had to take part in a failed experiment, and seeing as she should put the creature out of its misery, Citri tosses a piece of anti-metal at the creature, ordering Sven to shoot the metal. In an instant, the metal explodes, wiping out a chunk of the slime, but this is enough to slay the slime for good. Gark appears, revealed to have given Citri a ride, but more importantly, Citri says she knows who is behind this mess. Following Noctis, he is mortified to learn that Citri was able to take down their transmogrified monster, but at the same time Citri tells the others that the Akashic Tower is behind this incident. The hunters are immediately skeptical, seeing as Noctis is meant to have been banished from the kingdom. But Citri says she had been hunting down Noctis for a long time, plus the anomalies in the Wolf's Den reinforce her suspicions. At that moment, Talia points out that the enemy must have a base below the den, something Citri agrees with. Citri says they should first interrogate the men Gain attacked, apologizing in advance since she used up all the anti-mana metal she had, but she will still do her best to fill in for Cry. As Citri heads out to make her analysis, Sven warns Hendrik to not be fooled by Citri's good girl act, especially since Citri is a monster just like the other grievers. In the meantime, Liz rides Cry, begging him to go to the den and assist Citri, but sadly Cry forbids it all whilst Tino shyly stands idly by. Back with Flick, he's annoyed that Sophia wants them to send out monsters one at a time, plus she hasn't been communicating with them as planned. Refusing to embarrass themselves in front of Noctis, Flick orders for all of their monsters to be released at once. But as we cut back to Citri, we see her and the others interrogating Hose and Tage. Citri knows that disciples of Noctis would never willingly betray their master, so Citri declares she'll use a special potion to make them speak. Immediately, Adoria, a member of the government, reminds Citri that using such a potion would be like brainwashing someone and that it is illegal. When Gark himself steps up to calm Citri down, Citri reveals that the potion is merely colored water, even drinking the potion to prove it was a joke. Sadly, a large howl can be heard off in the distance, followed by the thumping of another red slime in the distance. Citri says different slimes have different magic barriers, and seeing as they need time to figure things out, Citri orders for several hunters, including Lyle, to stand as defense. When a monster approaches Lyle, it throws out a punch that strangely eats away at Lyle's defense, forcing him to toss away the shield to keep his arm. As mages launch fireballs at the slime, Citri notices it evades by spinning, a technique that it uses to attack as well. Gark fears that his axe will do nothing to such a creature, and seeing as they can't wait for the creature to tire itself out, Citri says they need to focus their attacks on a single spot or nullify its magic barrier. Before Citri can give orders, another blue slime appears, prompting the hunters to ask Citri to issue a retreat order. Citri seems to be thinking hard, but out of nowhere Citri's demeanor changes, ordering for the mages to stop firing and everyone to step back and watch. Strangely, the blue and red slimes immediately begin clashing. A feature of the slimes, as their sole existence, is to absorb other things with the greatest mana capacity. Within mere moments, several other slimes appear, but they all seem to be brawling with each other. But off to the side, Talia strangely utters that the slimes were meant to be sent one at a time. Cutting over to Noctis, he heavily berates his men for not listening to Sophia. Plus, Sophia is finally communicating with them, revealing that Gark, the retired hero, is also present against the hunters. Noctis immediately stiffens up, seeing as their transmogrification potions were wasted, but Sophia says they have to double down and wipe out the hunters before they find their base. Sophia suggests they unleash the partially trained Malice Eaters, and seeing as the creatures will need guidance, Flick is assigned to lead the creatures into battle. Back on the surface, Talia is seen admiring Citri, having been by Citri's side for a long time, and in that time Talia felt helpless at how smart and unique Talia behaved, ultimately making Talia scared and jealous of Citri. Sven notices Talia looking upset, reassuring Talia that their mission will be a success, seeing as Citri is here now. But Sven wonders why Hose and Tage have been staring at Talia. As Citri works throughout the night, Gark chooses to check in on her, asking Citri to not push herself so much, but Citri utters that she knows where the enemies are. Gathering everyone, Citri shows everyone her findings, only to pinpoint the Akashic Tower's hideout to be near the edge of cliff. Citri is able to confirm her suspicion when she asks Hose and Tage, reasoning the hunters should head out immediately and attack, whilst Noctis isn't suspecting them. But this only prompts Hose and Tage to cry for Sophia to rescue them. Citri recognizes Sophia's name to be her nemesis, but sadly Citri has been unable to capture Sophia up until now, swearing that she'll capture Sophia and Noctis, the evil mages, and place them into the South Asteria prison. Gark tries bringing up something from Citri's past, but Citri stops Gark before he does, cutting over to Cry, who is finally making his way over to the wolf den. Liz is clearly excited to show off her new powers to Cry, but Cry wonders how he can stall longer, seeing as he doesn't have many safety rings. Since it's quite dark, Tino tries pretending to be scared in order to hold Cry's hand, but immediately Liz forbids it, scolding Tino for even trying such a thing. Unable to see in the dark, Cry is forced to use an owl ring to help him navigate in the dark, all whilst Liz orders Tino to continue standing guard. With Sven, Citri, and several others patrolling the area, Gain apologizes to everyone, seeing as Cry was right all along, something Citri doesn't fault Gain for doing, as Cry is a unique specimen. Citri says Cry may appear as weak as a bunny, but he exhibits the power of a level 10. Sven takes the chance to ask why Citri didn't bring her magic creature kill him with her. But at that moment, a destructive bolt of lightning erupts from the skies, aimed directly at Citri. Revealed to have been Flick riding his Malice Eater, Flick cries that it was the right call to engage the hunters head-on with only one Malice Eater, but when Flick goes to inspect the hunters' corpses, he notices Sven is still alive. Flick cries that he'll single-handedly take down all the hunters, but out of nowhere Citri speaks up, revealing herself to be unharmed. Taking out a water gun, Citri fires a healing potion at Sven, instantly healing all of his wounds and allowing him to rush Flick, only to knock Flick out. Sadly, Sven is no match for the Malice Eater, but Gark appears, teaming the beast only to slay it. Following Noctis, he is annoyed Flick didn't make use of all the Eaters, prompting his men to suggest Noctis flees whilst they stall for him. Noctis refuses, declaring that they still have their trump card of Akasha, plus Sophia still has things up her sleeve, something that inspires the remaining hooded men to fight till the very end. Outside Noctis' headquarters, we see Citri and the others eyeing the entrance, annoyed to see monsters standing guard. Citri asks if Sven can carve open a path for them, but Gark intervenes, declaring he'll help them enter the cave and slay the evil mages. At the same time, we see Cry and the girls have made it to the location where Citri was attacked by Flick's lightning spell, freaking Tino out as such a spell cleared out a fraction of the forest. As Gark charges the creatures guarding the entrance, Sven and several mages assist his entry, all whilst Noctis unveils his trump card. Having sent the embodiment of Akasha itself to face off against Gark and the hunters, we see our hunters slowly losing the fight as other hooded men ride Malice Eaters into battle. But during the battle, we see Flick cutting his way out of his binds. Slowly, the Eaters tear away at the hunters, but right when things seem lost, Liz appears, instantly slaying one of the Eaters. Back with Cry, he is left alone with Tino since Liz ran off without them. But Tino suddenly declares that she has detected 3 entities nearby, revealed to be Flick, who escaped with the other 2 men. Cry mistakes the entities to be simple forest monsters, ordering Tino to leave them alone and proceed with their travels. And seeing as his owl ring wore off, Cry asks Tino to lead the way. With Liz now assisting the hunters, she is easily able to help turn the tides, teasing Citri for losing before she showed up, but Citri can only curse at her big sister for making fun of her. When Liz wraps up slaying the Malice Eaters, she darts towards the Akasha golem, throwing out a kick, but its hard exterior deflects the blow. Liz tries to pummel Akasha with a barrage of blows, but it only knocks the golem back, allowing Gark to follow up with a cleave that freezes a portion of Akasha's body. Strangely, the ice suddenly disappears, all whilst Akasha reacts to block one of Sven's arrows. But when Gark tries slashing at the golem once more, Akasha suddenly vanishes. Having leaped into the air, the gang are reminded of Ansem, and when Liz tries sneaking up for an aerial attack, Akasha detaches one of its arms to reveal a cannon. Firing and scraping Liz is forced to back off for now, all while Citri wonders why Akasha is solely fixated on attacking Liz. Liz is annoyed seeing the golem underestimate her, but when Liz and Gark work together to knock Akasha onto the ground, it shows off some boosters that rocket it onto its feet. Having exhausted herself, Liz declares it's over, prompting Cry and Tino to appear. Liz apologizes since she wasn't able to defeat Akasha before Cry showed up, but out of nowhere the golem locks on a Cry, suddenly flying towards him. With Cry unfazed, the golem takes a swing at Cry, but mysteriously Akasha is flung back, turning off on the impact. Cry apologizes since he couldn't see anything due to his poor vision, but in the morning, Gark reports that the Akashic Tower members were ultimately able to escape, but their research and documents were left behind. Citri is seen thanking Cry for the reinforcements, catching Cry up on what transpired whilst he was gone, all whilst Tino gives Liz a massage. When Cry asks if Citri needs help with anything, Citri says she's fine, only to glare towards Talia's direction. Cutting over to Noctis, he hears from his men that Sophia is undercover amongst First Step, and seeing as they've completely been bested, Noctis declares they'll be leaving Zabridia, all while Sophia seems to be searching for Citri's slime. Following Cry, he is seen being accused of setting everything up and keeping things from the association and government, something even Adoria believes. Cry asks why Gark and Adoria don't just speak with Citri, believing they're still hesitant due to the incident 3 years ago where Citri would have been falsely accused if it weren't for Gark intervening. Adoria reminds everyone that the evidence at the time pointed to Citri, and because of the incident, Citri was demoted and given the title of Deep Black, something that can't be reverted. Gark cries that Citri had no reason to associate herself with the South Asteria's mass prison break 3 years ago. But as we cut back to Noctis, we see he has captured Talia and is demanding that she drop the act. The men gathered all tell Sophia to stop being Talia, but when they see one of the Malice Eaters growling at Talia, they all freak out seeing the real Sophia appear besides Talia. Sophia reveals that she is a complete replication of Talia, choosing to remove her disguise only to reveal herself as Citri Smart, a fact no one knew, not even Noctis. Before the men can attack Citri, Citri says she had always admired Noctis and his research into Akasha, and seeing as she could have never acquired and dedicated the time into researching such things, she had to play the role of apprentice to her master Noctis. Citri admits that Cry did warn her to drop the act soon, believing that Cry had sent all the hunters to the wolf's den to help Citri test out Akasha's abilities, but when she saw the hunters overwhelm the golem, she decided to end the experiment, and was the reason why the golem flew back and didn't attack Cry. Citri declares she'll be taking the men in, first heading over to Talia and apologizing to her since she needed Talia to play as the scapegoat, having learned from her past to not stand out. When the men order their Malice Eater to attack Citri, Citri manages to tame the creature, pissing Noctis off as he casts his Kaiser Flame to incinerate the eater. Citri uses the opportunity to unveil her Citri Slime, a creature that could devour anything and grows with the amount of mana it consumes. And seeing as there is no hope of defeating Citri, as is, Noctis chooses to flee, leaving his underlings to stall. Sadly, when Noctis heads for the exit, a strange being pushes him back. A creature Citri reveals to be her own Chimera Killium, a creature created from the leftover parts from Noctis's previous experiments. With Citri donning her Griever's mask, she orders Killium to slay Noctis, only to cut to later that day, where Cry is surprised to hear that the Akashic Tower members have all been captured, but their memories seem to be missing. Citri also mentions that Talia was caught in the crossfire, but Cry has no idea what she is talking about, only nodding and agreeing to fulfill any future requests Citri may have. Holding another meeting with Gark and Andoria, Cry asks if he could have the Akasha Golem and the Malice Eaters. Outside, Citri is glad that Cry was present as they managed to obtain the Malice Eater, but not the Golem. With Citri heading to pick up the Eaters, Gark asks to speak with Cry, reporting that Arnold Hale, a level 7 hunter from Nebula Noob's The Land of Fog, has arrived at the capital. Cry says he doesn't really care who Arnold is, but Gark reminds Cry that Arnold had taken down a lightning dragon in the past, but Cry mentions he also took down a dragon as well. Gark gleefully laughs, apologizing for not knowing only to pat Cry on the back, accidentally destroying one of Cry's safety rings, all whilst asking Cry to not start trouble with Arnold. As Gark leaves, Cry notices a familiar-looking poster, surprised that the annual Zaberdian auction is occurring soon, and is an auction that shows off many rare relics. Cry panics, seeing as he has no funds, plus he can't keep borrowing money from Citri. But at that moment, Chloe Welter calls out to Cry, someone Cry remembers works as a receptionist and is Gark's niece. Chloe asks why her uncle has been so happy lately, but Cry doesn't know, suspecting it may have something to do with Arnold from the Falling Fog. As Citri appears, Cry heads out with Citri, passing through the yard only to be brushed by some interesting people. As we follow Chloe, she greets Arnold and his party, only for us to cut back to Cry, who sees Chloe has tamed the Malice Eater given to her. Given the name Drink, Citri says their pet won't harm Cry or herself. But when Drink leaps into Cry's arms, it begins picking away at the safety rings Cry has, forcing Citri to pull Drink away before it does too much damage. Cry fears that any more cuddling with Drink will drain the remainder of his safety rings. So Cry asks Citri when Lucia will come back and charge his relics. Citri suspects it'll take a while since Luke is off engaging the boss of their assigned vault, and Lucia and the others are choosing to stay with him until they're finished. Citri also remembers to hand Cry something, an item Cry recognizes as an Aspiration Manifest, a relic that lets a user store any one spell in it, just like the one Cry carries around his neck and acts as a lucky charm gifted to him by Lucia. Citri asks Cry to take good care of it, but as we cut to Arnold and his party, we see Jaster pissed that Chloe wasn't more scared when she laid eyes on Arnold. Ilaria manages to calm Jaster down, declaring that they'll work their way up to becoming the heroes in the capital as well, something that fires Arnold up as he squeezes the juice out of an apple. Back at the base, we see Citri giving her all to massage Cry, something that annoys Eva, but as Citri enjoys the moment, Cry says he still needs Lucia to recharge his relics. Citri suddenly gets an idea, first wrapping up her massage session with Cry only to gather several hunters to start an impromptu lesson to help Cry out. Citri declares that those who pass the class will be classified as a mage on par with Lucia, something that makes the hunters perk up especially Chris Argent and Lapis Fulgur, members of the Starlight Party. Chris gets annoyed at Cry for zoning out, but Lapis calms Chris down, reminding her that Cry is Lucia's older brother and someone they should respect. Apparently, Starlight is a party composed of demi-humans called noble spirits, beings that have lived many years and are experts at magic. Lapis herself is level 6, whilst Chris is level 3, and their kind tends to look down on those that aren't great mages. Lapis asks if they can truly get as strong as Lucia, especially since Lucia is the most renowned mage in the capital. But Citri doesn't lie, only uttering that their training involves things Lucia would do often. Marietta and Nori chooses to go first, starting off by charging one of Cry's relics, but it seems to be taking longer than usual. Citri simply orders Marietta to continue until completion, and when Marietta is done, Citri simply hands Marietta some more relics charge. Citri explains that a mage's mana capacity normally stops growing around their teenage years, but as Marietta collapses from mana exhaustion, Citri reveals that a mage's mana capacity actually increases slightly every time a mage exhausts their mana. Chris says it takes a decent amount of time for someone to recover from mana exhaustion, but Citri takes out a unique liquid, dripping it into Marietta's mouth only for Marietta to strangely jump up. Citri adds that this was the method Lucia herself endured to improve as a mage, and seeing as Lapis and Chris are still hesitant, Citri points out how Starlight wants to recruit Lucia, but their members of Starlight aren't willing to endure as much as Lucia to grow. With Chris and Lapis refusing to be humiliated, they demand to start their training immediately, prompting Killiam to unveil a hoard of relics for them to charge. Seeing Lapis and Chris training, the other mages begin charging the relics as well. But as we cut to later that night, we see Ark being offered a deal by a man, but Ark apologizes since he wants to stay by Cry's side. The man is amazed someone could be as powerful as Ark himself, someone who hails from the House of Rodan, but the man asks if Ark has met Earl Gladys yet. With Ark informing the man he hasn't, Ark suddenly turns to greet Lady Eclair Gladys. The next day, Cry and Citri visit Liz and Tino, but as Liz gets cleaned off, Citri begins inspecting Tino's body, amazed at how much Tino has grown. With Tino unable to move, Cry is forced to ask Citri to stop trying to take Tino for herself, prompting Tino to run off to fetch a towel for Liz. As Liz confidently strolls into the room nude, Tino is forced to help cover Liz up, all while Citri blocks Cry's eyes, only for Liz to ask why Cry is here. Cry says he wants to celebrate Liz and Citri's safe return, but before Liz can embrace Cry, Citri tackles Liz to keep her away from Cry. Tino gets excited since she gets to celebrate with them. But as we cut to later that evening, we see Arnold and his party strolling through town. Arnold demands they get some drinks, but at the same time we see Cry and the gang out celebrating, only for a drunken Liz to accuse Citri of spiking her drink. Citri simply feigns ignorance, even ignoring Liz when she accuses Citri of being the mastermind behind the revival of Akasha. But whilst Liz is distracted, Citri continues to spike Liz's drink. Having not seen anything, Cry accidentally passes Citri one of her spiked drinks, forcing her to drink. Instantly, Citri gets really drunk, accusing Cry of taking advantage of her since he hasn't paid back the 10 figures she lent him. But when Citri demands Cry pay her back with his body, Liz tackles Citri to the ground. Before the girls' fight gets too messy, a loud commotion can be heard in a different part of the room, caused by Arnold and his gang, who order everyone in the room to bow down to Arnold, the level 7 hunter. Immediately, Liz and Citri get intrigued at Arnold's presence, and when Arnold demands some booze and women, Liz volunteers, slowly approaching Arnold with some booze in hand. Arnold says he isn't interested in a child, but Liz takes the chance to dump the booze over Arnold's head, only to smash the container on Arnold. With Liz also knocking out Arnold's gang, she manages to pin Arnold down with her feet, wondering if Arnold truly is a level 7. But before things can escalate further, Cry pulls Liz away, asking her to calm down. Flashing back 3 years, we see a younger Chloe taking the first step entrance exam, but Luke was far too strong for her. In the present, Chloe monitors other hunters as a receptionist for the Explorers Association. only for us to catch up with Cry, who feels bad, seeing as they should smooth things over with Arnold and his party. Eva suggests they get Gark to clear things up, but thinking of the lightning dragon Arnold slayed, Cry begins to crave dragon meat. Following Arnold and his party, they swear they'll make Liz pay, choosing to head to the association, but Chloe is surprised they aren't here to make a complaint. Arnold simply asks to know more about Liz, but Gark appears, gladly telling them about Liz and her behaviors. But Gark does spark the gang's interest when they hear Cry the level 8 hunter was in front of them. Gark says Cry won't attack them if they don't act up, and before Gark leaves, he relays Arnold a message from Cry regarding his hunger for Thunder Dragon meat. But this only pisses Arnold off more as he changes his target to Cry. Cutting to Cry. He shocks Eva when she hears Cry owes Citri over $10 billion. But Cry says Citri was reasonable enough to give him options to repay his debt. Citri says the first option would be for Cry to go to jail since he technically stole money from her. The second option is for Cry to marry Citri, that way their assets become unified, so technically he doesn't owe her anything. Cry wonders if he should just marry Citri. But Eva says Cry should be able to pay Citri back if he saves up money. But as Eva leaves, Cry thinks about what he should buy in the upcoming auction. With Arnold and his gang asking around, they're weirded out by the rumors of Cry seeing the future and never participating in treasure vault raids. But Arnold wonders if Cry is more of a tactician and had to rely on his teammates to reach level 8. Arnold declares he'll squash Cry to prove to everyone he is the strongest. But as we catch up with Cry, he is seen admiring the beautiful sky from his balcony. Out of nowhere, Tino appears, having since Cry needed something from her, and seeing as it's the perfect opportunity, Cry asks to borrow some money from Tino. Tino mentions how she still needs money to live, but Cry jokingly says he won't ask too much from her. Plus, Cry's 10 billion debt can be wiped out if he just marries Citri. Hearing this, Tino despairs, fearing that Citri will have Cry all to herself. But needing a change of scenery, Cry and Tino head out for a walk. Tino asks Cry why he doesn't just search for relics in treasure vaults and sell them for money. But Cry can't tell Tino that he is a fraud, but at the same time we see Arnold and his gang scheming ways to attack Cry. Funnily enough, Cry runs into Arnold's party, prompting the boys to ready their weapons as they prepare to attack Cry. But Tino reminds the boys that Cry is a god. Cry offers to apologize on his knees to prevent a beating, but Tino continues to defend Cry, declaring that scum aren't worthy of Cry's time. Seeing as Arnold and his men aren't backing down, Cry reasons they should take things onto the street. But as a large crowd forms, Cry looks around to see if any of his clan members can back him up. Having waited long enough, Arnold calls Cry out to be a spineless man who relied on others to get to where he is today, but although Cry doesn't deny such a deduction, Tino steps up to defend Cry's honor. The men declare that they only want Cry, but Tino says she'll be fighting in Cry's place, something Cry doesn't object to. Although the men don't want to hurt Tino, Tino charges towards Arnold, firing off several punches and kicks that don't faze Arnold whatsoever. As Cry scans the surrounding area, he remembers to cheer Tino on, but getting more infuriated by how cowardice Cry is, Arnold chooses to slam Tino's head into the ground, calling out Cry for being a fraud. Seeing Tino completely helpless, Cry finally steps up, declaring he'll need to subdue Arnold and his men only to activate the spell hidden in the relic around his neck. As we flash back, we see that Cry had asked Lucia to create a spell that would help him detain any enemy he desires, something Lucia ultimately made happen. In the present, Arnold and his men are seen unable to move, having been trapped by some gravity magic. But seeing as Tino was caught in the crossfire, Cry quickly helps her up. Cry tells Arnold that he is happy to accept any future challenges, but Arnold must first defeat Obsidian Cross, Starlight, and Arcbrave, the three parties within his clan, before Arnold can face Cry himself. With Cry leaving the scene, he chooses to treat Tino to a sweet treat, but Tino feels guilty for not being able to defeat Arnold, offering to conquer a vault and clear away Cry's debt in order to redeem herself. In the training hall, we see Citri helping with Liz's training, but Liz is bored facing replicas of Akasha, saddened to hear she won't get to face the real thing. Citri brings up how Arnold attacked Cry, but he managed to escape by using one of Lucia's gravity spells, Tyrant's order. The sisters joke about crushing him if he orders it, but as we follow Cry, he is seen asking Chloe why Arnold hates him. Chloe says Cry seems to have been disrespecting him, but when Cry fails to recall moments he was rude to Arnold, he ends up giving up. Before Cry leaves, Chloe asks why Cry failed her when she took her entrance exam with Luke, but Cry can't remember, so he says that Chloe can probably figure out the reason herself. Plus, Chloe is far more suited to be the association's receptionist rather than risk her life being a hunter. Just like that, Cry takes his leave, something Chloe admires about Cry as he is always so mysterious. But in actuality, Cry had failed Chloe 3 years ago since she was 14, 1 year below the minimum required age of 15. The next day, Arnold is seen back at the association, hearing from Chloe that Cry doesn't think much of Arnold, and worst of all, Cry believes Arnold to be a breast-loving pervert. Choosing to return home, Arnold and the gang drink away the stress of the last few days. But as Jaster returns, he makes his report when speaking with the 3 guilds. When speaking with Obsidian Cross, Sven had mentioned how Cry must have lied to Arnold and his gang before slipping away. When Jaster spoke with Starlight, Chris and Lapis revealed that they have no interest in fighting Arnold and his party. Lastly, when Jaster spoke with Arcbrave, Isabella Melns and Yushiraji mocks Arnold and his party for believing Cry's lies, pissing Arnold off. Reasons they should leave Cry be for now, especially since the auction is coming up and they can finally sell their extremely rare relic that couldn't be appraised in the Land of Fog. Following Cry, he has Mathis appraising another of his relics, but Mathis cries that such a relic can't be appraised as it seems to be from an advanced civilization. Mathis says he'll complete his appraisal after he finishes up preparations for the auction, but Cry asks if he can inspect the items being sold at the auction, all whilst Tino chats with Mathis. Seeing Tino so sweet, Mathis is reminded of his own granddaughter, asking Tino to take it easy and look after herself from time to time. Tino is grateful for the advice, but when she thinks about Cry's crippling debt, she begins to despair. In the storage room, Cry sifts through various relics, only to see a strange-looking mask, wondering if it is a type of reversible mask. Apparently, Cry's previous mask was broken by Liz. Such a shame since Cry would be able to don the mask and walk around as he pleases without being bothered. Yearning to get his carefree life back, Cry asks who the owner of the mask is, wanting to purchase it before the auction. Out in a park, Tino enjoys a crepe only to ask what Cry plans to do to pay Citri back, but Cry wonders if the mask he'll purchase can disguise him whilst he steals things to help pay back his debt. Cry feels bad hearing that Citri is running low on funds herself, plus most of the experiments she conducts cost a decent amount of money. So as our duo stroll through town later that evening, Cry racks his brain for other ways to get money. Out of nowhere, Cry spots a carriage belonging to the house of the Earl of Gladys, an aristocrat that famously hates hunters. Eclair is seen thanking Ark as he gave up his time to spend with her. But suddenly, Eclair glares at Cry, demanding to know why he's staring at them. Ark tries introducing Eclair to Cry and Tino, but when Eclair begins bad-mouthing Cry, Cry is forced to restrain Tino from snapping back at the little girl. Eclair is confused seeing Cry accepting all the insults she throws at him. But seeing as it's time to leave, Eclair departs, leaving Ark to apologize for Eclair's rudeness. Cry takes the chance to ask Ark for money, but Ark immediately refuses, first asking what type of relic Cry plans to buy this time. And when Cry refuses to answer, Ark says he can't lend Cry any money. Cry takes the chance to ask other people in the room for money, cutting to the next day, where rumors of a powerful relic Cry is dying for will be in the upcoming auction. But as we follow Cry, he apologizes for enlisting Citri to help with negotiations on the relic he plans to buy. Citri utters that she is willing to give her life to ensure Cry gets his relic. But out of nowhere, the owner of the strange relic mask is revealed to be Arnold himself. With A accompanying Arnold, Citri gets their negotiation talk started, mentioning how Arnold's scary-looking relic won't appeal to the buyers at the auction, so they should sell it cheap to Cry. Arnold says that's not fair since the relic could exhibit a rare skill, but Cry mentions how the relic could also be very dangerous, so Cry himself will dispose of it for them. Arnold doesn't buy anything Cry says at first, but upon realizing who he is dealing with, Arnold suspects Cry is playing mind games with him and intentionally wants Arnold to keep the mask. Smirking, Arnold says he'll sell the mask for 10 million gold, only to proudly declare his victory over Cry. Cry is confused at the low price, but before Citri can help Cry pay for the mask, several hunters offer up a higher price for the mask, ultimately ending with Eclair offering an absurd amount for the mask. Back at home base, Cry is depressed since he didn't get the mask after all, and after that stir of people offering up millions for the mask, it seems it'll be auctioned up at the event after all. Mathis had appraised the mask to be quite dangerous, and thanks to the rumors of Cry searching for an all-powerful relic spread, Cry won't get his mask, plus he needs to continue saving to pay Citri back. At that moment, Citri appears, revealing that she had actually been saving some money for the day Cry and her get married, unveiling a total of 800 million gold. Seeing Citri so infatuated by Cry, Eva reminds Citri that she can't keep enabling Cry's obsession with relics, but as the girls argue, Cry heads onto the balcony to get some fresh air. After some time passes, Citri says they should visit Eclair and see why she wants to buy the mask as well, cutting over to Eclair, who demands to know why Cry is visiting her. Cry mentions how they're here to chat, but Eclair begins to accuse Cry of using unfair tactics to reach level 8. Refusing to believe a nobody like Cry is stronger than Ark. Eclair reveals that she plans to purchase and give Ark the all-powerful relic mask, so he can overthrow Cry. But Cry corrects Eclair, stating that Ark would never want someone else's help to defeat his foe. Citri also speaks up, declaring that they'll willingly put up 200 million against Eclair's bid of 100 million. But Citri says they'll give up if Eclair continues to bid more. At a crossroads, Eclair reports this news to her father Van Gladys, only for Van to ask Montour how much they can pay for the mask. Montour says their family can pull together 1 billion gold in total plus some extra if they need to. And seeing as the House of Gladys refuses to lose, Van instructs Eclair to win the bid no matter what. On the day of the auction, Citri reports that they have a budget of 950 million gold, something Cry appreciates Citri for pulling together. Before Citri can embrace Cry, Liz appears to pull Cry away, even mentioning that she can help steal the mask if they happen to lose. Arriving at the auction hall, Cry spots Tino hanging out with Runda, Greg, and Gilbert, all teasing Cry for stirring up so much trouble. Cry feels bad for not inviting Tino to come with him, so he gives Tino the role of being his agent, exciting Tino as she gets to raise the paddle to place a bid. With Tino promising Liz they'll win, Cry takes note of Eclair, who has arrived looking more confident than ever. But as the bidding begins, we cut to entry 14, where a massive mirror shield is sold for 15 million gold. In the stand, Liz is completely bored, something Cry apologizes for since the mask will be put up for bidding towards the end. Cry is forced to watch as various relics are wheeled onto the stage. But every time, Cry holds himself back from bidding, signaling to Tino to not place a bid just yet. Cry suddenly spots Tino checking on his behavior, forcing Cry to squirm as he wonders if he should buy multiple cheaper relics over an expensive one. Plus, Cry says he has an ace up his sleeve. With more and more relics being sold to other buyers, Cry prepares to give the signal to Tino to purchase the upcoming relic, but Cry stops himself, reasoning that it would be a betrayal of trust to Citri. Sadly, Cry's cravings have overcome him as he announces he'll splurge now and suffer the consequences afterwards. But surprisingly, entry number 44 is revealed to be the golem Akasha. Citri is in complete disbelief, but as the bidding starts, the price immediately starts to skyrocket. Cry immediately notices Citri acting strange, and when Cry offers to bid for the golem, Citri says they can't since Cry's mask is more important. Cry knows that the golem took tons of time and effort on Citri's part to make, and seeing as this is the perfect time to splurge, Cry gives the signal for Tino to enter the bid. Within a few seconds, the value of the golem rises to 500 million, something that scares Citri as she fears they won't have enough for Cry's mask. Cry reassures Citri that this means more to her than his mask, proceeding by having Tino place a bid for 950 million, but sadly another bidder puts up 990 million, an amount over their budget. As the bid wraps up, we see the golem was sold for 1,060 million gold, but more surprisingly, Cry was the one who placed the bid. Citri says they won't have enough to pay, but Cry reveals a check that will help cover the total amount, something Citri is grateful for. Cry reveals that he stole half of Lucia's savings to come up with that check, but out of nowhere, Greg was revealed to have placed the bids for Tino. Outside, the gang learned that their billion-dollar bid broke a record, and since Tino didn't know how to bid, Greg offered to bid in her place. A perfect scenario for Cry. Cry says Greg surely won't hound money from him nor Citri, so Cry takes the chance to leave. In the auction hall, we see things heating up as Claire prepares to bid her heart out for the mask. But outside, Cry realizes his mistake as he still needs to get the mask somehow. Luckily, earlier in the day, Cry had visited Ark, instructing him to get the mask relic from Claire, as it's quite dangerous. Although Ark's party is skeptical at Cry's warning, Ark asks what he'll need to deal with the relic, but Cry says Ark won't need any weapons and he'll need to hurry since Cry will be sad if Ark fails. Having returned to home base, Cry says he plans on having Ark retrieve the mask for him, where he'll be able to purchase it off Ark for a discounted price. Following Claire, we see her depressed, having easily won the bidding for the mask, but Van tells Claire that Cry had left the auction already, suspecting that he let Claire win on purpose. In her room, Claire begins to cry, blaming herself for losing to Cry, plus she can't give such a hideous mask to Arkansas. When Claire cries to be stronger, a voice from the mask can suddenly be heard, beckoning Claire to put it on. When Claire refuses, the mask begins listing things it can give to Claire to make her stronger, forcibly diving towards Claire. Downstairs, we see Ark has arrived, hearing from Van that Claire had shut herself in her room, embarrassed by what happened at the auction house. Before Ark can wonder what Cry was thinking of sending him here, a sudden noise upstairs forces Ark and his party to rush to Claire's location, but out of nowhere they spot Claire beating up her knights, revealed to have equipped the mask. Claire is seen screaming that she has become stronger, but unable to bear Claire's torment. Ark chooses to approach Claire only to call out her name. Snapping out of her frenzy, Claire says she wanted to give Ark the mask she bought for him, but before she can remove it, she becomes enraged seeing as Ark is carrying around a sword. Leaping back, Ark realizes Cry was right about not needing to bring any weapons, and seeing as they'll need to subdue Claire, Ark orders for his party to assist him. With Claire equipping a sword of her own, she screams that she isn't weak only to clash blades with Ark. Elsewhere, we follow Arnold and his gang all celebrating a win, since they managed to cash in the mask for 200 million gold. When they return to their home, they notice Liz and Citri waiting for them, demanding that Arnold fork over some of the cash, as it was thanks to Cry that they made so much. Liz reveals that earlier, whilst they were celebrating and drinking, Citri had poisoned their drinks, and now the girls are willing to sell the antidote to them for only 110 million gold, an offer Arnold can't refuse. With Ark returning to report to Cry, he is surprised to see Cry has thrown a party to apologize to Ark, but Ark mistakes the apology for Cry, giving him so little information on the mask. When Ark hands Cry the mask, Cry hurriedly places it on, but before Claire herself can thank Cry for sending Ark to save her, the cursed mask latches onto Cry's face. Funnily enough, the mask evaluates Cry's stats to be too low for it, immediately disengaging and falling off Cry's face. The series ends with the gang all gathering for a celebration, seeing as Cry had finally obtained the mask he wanted, and with Luke, Ansem, and Lucia still stuck on conquering the Night Palace. We cut to several days later, where Eva asks Cry to give his report on the 7th member of the Grievers, Eliza Beck, a level 6 hunter with the role of a thief from the Desert Nobles. Flashing back, we see a younger Tino dressing up only to head into town to run some errands. But her aunt warns the 11-year-old Tino to head home immediately after her shopping and not wander around too much. Heeding her advice, Tino heads to a bakery to pick up some bread, only to be warned by the owners that some red bandits have been kidnapping people recently, and that she should stay on the main roads and avoid back alleys at all costs. With Tino wrapping up her shopping, she realizes she had missed an ingredient, but before she can head back to the shop, she bumps into a crook. Frightened by the man's scary demeanor, Tino tries to flee, but a second man blocks her escape. Immediately, the men demand Tino cough up some cash before the knight's order arrives. But Tino refuses as she flees the scene. Sadly, the men are simply toying with Tino as they let her tire herself out only to confront her once more. Despairing, Tino is asked to drink a strange potion. But suddenly, Cry's voice can be heard, something that frightens the men. To make things worse, the remainder of the grievers make themselves known. But this only pisses off the men who recognize the kids as the newcomers in town. When one of the men try to attack, Luke and Liz blow them back, and seeing as they're outnumbered, the men agree to flee, allowing Cry to introduce himself to Tino, a pivotal moment that changed Tino's life forever. In the present, Tino is seen recounting her past to Eva and Cry. But funnily enough, Cry didn't mean to save Tino that day, as he was simply lost and bumped into her. After the grievers had rescued Tino, they had promised to retrieve Tino's lost pin, and not too long after, Cry and his party had introduced themselves to Gark. When the gang reported the thugs to Gark, Gark wanted to know more details on the two men, but sadly the grievers' masks prevented them from properly profiling the two men. Surprised, Gark says he can't deal with any issues at the moment, seeing as the Knight's Order needs them at the moment. But Cry does get permission to pursue these men if they cause any more trouble. As Cry and the others leave, Gark is impressed Cry knew the men were hunters, but creepily the number of hunters kidnapping kids have increased over the years. Cutting over to the two men, they're seen pissed off that their prey had fled, and it seems the organization they work for will dispose of them if they don't hit their quota. Coming up with an idea, the men declare that they'll recruit the grievers to help with their evil deeds, and within a few days the men had offered Cry a position in their organization. The men had promised Cry a comfortable life in the capital if he came with them, but Cry didn't know what they were referring to, so he simply played along and agreed to follow them. With the men guiding our gang, they eventually reach a heavily guarded steel door, and upon passing through, Cry is asked to have a seat whilst waiting for the boss to appear. In the meantime, Cry is informed that the two men were the people who tried kidnapping Tino, exciting the gang as they can abolish the evil residing in the capital now that they're in the organization's hideout. Out of nowhere, a fancy-looking man introduces himself as the boss, and getting down to business, the boss asks the grievers to work solely for their organization. Seeing the boss and his underlings' despicable faces, Cry asks if he could have time to think things over, but the boss asks the gang to check out their merchandise. Brought deeper into their hideout, the gang are suddenly surrounded by a swarm of hunters, and to make things worse, the boss shows off several locked-up kids they've kidnapped, announcing that they'll grow their criminal empire to surpass the Snake and Fox organizations, words that make Cry quiver. With the boss demanding Cry join them, Cry hesitates, but the boss's henchman immediately fires off a warning shot that knocks down Luke. Disgusted, Cry refuses the offer, a signal that leads Luke to spring back up and slice off the boss and his henchman's arms before they can react. It's revealed that Luke's mask had protected the bullet from piercing his head, and with everyone now agitated, we see the grievers begin their brawl with the hunters. Whilst Cry and Ansem help to free the kids, we see the others decimating the evil doers, and coincidentally Cry stumbles on Tino's pin. After a few days, the entire capital learns of the grievers wiping out the criminal organization, and apparently even Gark and the Knight's Order couldn't hunt down the organization, something that has caused Gark to summon the gang for a word. Although nervous, Cry says he'll beg for forgiveness if they've caused an issue for Gark, but suddenly the gang bump into Tino, who has also been summoned. Seeing as it's the perfect time, Cry hands Tino her pin, a sentiment that makes Tino cry as she had asked for a photo to commemorate their heroic deed. In the present, Tino and Cry enjoy the sunset, only for Tino to remind Cry that it's been 5 years since they first met. Tino declares she'll make Cry proud and join the grievers one day, but this makes Cry wonder if they should revisit the Aline Pillar's ruins in hopes of finding some more relics. Moving forward some time, we follow Tino meeting up with Cry and Citri at the Aline Pillar's ruins, but immediately Cry notices a hole in the ground that wasn't here before. Cry wonders if this anomaly could lead to the discovery of more relics, but Citri says she can't detect any mana disturbances, so such an outcome is unlikely. Cry feels bad for dragging Citri out here, But Citri says she was happy to come as the rabbits, and sand could have given Cry some trouble. And interestingly, Tino is dead set on exploring the new hole in the ground in search for new relics. As Tino heroically descends the ruins, Citri whispers to Cry that the hole has actually been dubbed by the Akash Golem as the hole used to belong to an old Noctis base. A location, Citri says, is disguised as a sand rabbit nest. Heading toward a crack in the ruins, Citri prepares to lead the way, but suddenly a strange man can be heard tunneling out from the crack, and as the man excitedly announces an amazing discovery regarding the sand rabbits, it introduces itself as Aleko, the sand rabbit researcher. Aleko cries that their research is meant to be secretive, but he is willing to divulge some of the things he found. And as we switch to Tino, we see her excitedly digging through some sand in hopes of finding a relic to make Cry happy, but she fails to notice a red beam of light spying on her. Having ventured underground, Aleko shows off a disheveled-looking lab he believes was constructed by the sand rabbits. Plus, Aleko believes the hole dug in the ruins was done by the king of Rabbit's Arena, Rex. Cry can't help but be bored listening to Aleko's mindless ramblings. And to make things worse, Aleko offers to cook the gang a rabbit meal. But this makes Citri to ask Aleko to show them some proof. Back on the surface, Aleko prepares to harvest a sand rabbit he has caught. But suddenly Tino can be heard crying for help, all whilst a massive sand rabbit chases after her. Ecstatic, Aleko dons his gear ready to hunt down the massive rabbit, but Tino believes she is being tested once more by Cry. Back at headquarters, Eva tells Cry that the members of the House of Gladys have sent him a thank you letter for getting rid of the evil mask. As for any other letters, Cry says just mail back any asking him to fulfill some job request. Eva takes note of the small dolls Cry is playing with, and with Cry obsessed with the new relic Tino found recently, he announces that Mathis calls it the Mirage Form Relic. Cry says he can create any illusions within 240 meters of himself, and to demonstrate, Cry conjures up Eva's floating head to frighten her. Elsewhere, we follow Liz interrogating some people only to report to Citri that she has yet to learn anything even after using the colored water Citri provided her. A shame, since the red hunters they captured are being used as pawns and nothing else. Citri says they should return to cleaning up any remnants of the Akashic Tower, but the girls note how Greg has been getting paranoid as of lately, as several nobles have taken an interest in him. Citri says she can't use any of the hunters for her experiments as she needed mages, and when Liz offers to dispose of them, the captured hunters begin to shake, leading Citri to offer them a role to work for her. That night, Cry apologizes for having Tino run from the massive sand rabbit the other day. Plus, Cry wants to make things right by giving Tino a relic. With Citri and Liz joining the conversation, the girls tell Cry to give Tino a relic that makes her stronger, and before Tino can refuse, Liz reminds Tino that she was pathetic when she ran away from the massive rabbit. Cry announces that he has the perfect relic only to whip out the cursed mask he acquired. And with Tino quivering at the thought of what the mask may do to her, we see Liz stopping Tino from fleeing only for the mask to lock onto Tino. With a push from the sisters, we see the cursed mask latching onto Tino, only for Tino to suddenly freeze up. In the blink of an eye, Tino dashes to pick up Cry only to cry out that she is sick and tired of Liz and Citri always hogging her master. But such words only fire up the sisters. The next day, Gark is seen telling Cry about a request from Earl Gladys, and seeing as the association wants to strengthen their connection with Earl the Noble that hates hunters, Gark orders Cry to accept the request. Cry tries pushing the responsibilities onto Ark, but Karina reminds Cry that he'll be expelled if he doesn't accept a job after 3 terms, leading Gark to roar that Cry has gone 2 terms without accepting a job, and in 3 months his 3rd term will be up. Gark commends Cry for always giving others his credit, but Cry knows he hasn't really done anything these past months. But Cry does agree to visit the Gladys domain up north with Chloe only after he finishes his preparations. Heading through town, Cry racks his brain for a way to avoid the job request, but suddenly he bumps into a blue-haired boy and blonde girl that seem to be acquainted with Cry, but he can't seem to remember them. Sitting down for some tea, the boy immediately asks Cry to withdraw from his upcoming job request only to reveal that they were meant to originally deal with the Akashic Towers. Funnily enough, Cry has no idea what is happening, but he does hear the boy's nickname is Artie and the girl's name is Mary. Artie mentions how Gark may be looking for a predecessor, and whilst Cry enjoys his tea and cake, he ultimately agrees to leave the remnants of the Akashic Towers to Artie and Mary. But suddenly Arnold and his party confront Cry, still pissed at what Liz and Citri did to them. The men prepare to fight Cry, but suddenly Archie and Mary offer to fight in place of Cry, only to reveal themselves to be Art Baron Henning and Mary Auden, members of the Hidden Curse clan, a clan that houses the strongest mage in the capital Abyssal Inferno. With Cry asking to use the bathroom, he is seen sneaking out a nearby window, as he wants no part in the brawl that may start with the others. And creepily, he dons an oversized disguise using his Mirage artifact as he rushes home. At his office, Eva cries that Cry has been invited to the gathering of White Blades by the Emperor that takes place 3 weeks from now. And whilst Eva celebrates the Emperor finally recognizing Cry's amazing talents, Cry cuts her off by announcing that he'll be going on a vacation. Meeting up with Citri and Liz, Cry invites the girls to go on a vacation with him to Night Palace in hopes of meeting up with Luke and the others. Plus, he plans on making the vacation 3 weeks long in hopes of skipping out on the Emperor's gathering. Cry reassures the girls that Hidden Curse will be dealing with the Akashic Towers remnants whilst they're gone, and with Citri allowed to bring Killium and drink. We see Liz asking other clan members to join them on a vacation, only for everyone to make up excuses to avoid traveling with Cry and the sisters. That evening, Liz is seen checking up on Tino, who has locked herself away after she tried fighting Liz and Citri. But having had enough of Tino's apologies, Liz declares they'll be going on a vacation and that Tino has 5 minutes to get ready. Meeting up in front of the carriage, Citri, with the help of her electrocollars, introduces 3 of her new assistants, Black, White, and Gray, who will be traveling with them. Right on cue, Liz is seen dragging Tino along with her, and as the gang depart on horse carriage via the northern gate, we see Arnold and Gark being informed of Cry leaving the capital, and this forces both parties to make preparations to chase after Cry. With Chloe assigned to chase after Cry, she is seen bumping into Arnold, who has the same goals as her. But back at the capital, it is announced that Hidden Curse will be waging war on the Akashic Towers whilst Cry is gone. Having taken a pit stop, we see Liz and Tino training their sprints, but suddenly Liz calls for Citri to hand her the lightning potion. Although hesitant, Citri tosses a small vial at Liz, leading Liz to prepare to train Tino with some lightning strikes. Immediately, Tino begins fleeing from Liz, and having refused to don the creepy mask for a power boost, Tino is forced to tank several lightning strikes. With the gang setting up camp for the night, Cry reminds the sisters that training is not allowed whilst they're on vacation, and with Tino barely breathing, Cry orders the girls to prioritize having fun. Listening to Cry, the sisters get excited about what Cry has in store for them, but at the same time we see Chloe, Gilbert, and Ruta riding in a carriage alongside Arnold and his party. Although a lightning storm is brewing outside, the gang reason that they can meet up with Cry at Elon, as Cry will need to pass through Elon before entering the Gladys territory. Switching over to Cry, it seems his party has arrived at the town of Elon, where Cry has a base. Plus, it seems only Cry, Tino, and the sisters will be staying in the house, whilst the others stay elsewhere. Immediately, Liz begins snooping around for things to do. And interestingly, Liz stumbles upon Citri's stash of experiments along with items used to seduce people. Seeing Tino scared, Cry reassures her that there will be no training whilst they're on vacation. But suddenly a bolt of lightning strikes the town. With Cry unbothered by the phenomena, Citri secretly wonders if her lightning potion may have been too potent. But switching over to Chloe, we see her and the gang finally arriving at Elon Town as well. Freakishly, a guard alerts the party to flee the area, only to point to a lightning spirit that has appeared above the town. A fears that the spirit may be stronger than the thunder dragon Arnold took down in the past. And seeing as hunters they must protect the weak, Arnold orders everyone to brace themselves to fight the spirit. At the same time, Cry takes a soothing bath, and occasionally Liz would show off some bold fits Citri had been preparing. As for Arnold, he is forced to slurp down some potions to help with his combat, but even still the lightning spirit is too far away for the hunters to reach. Refusing to give in, Arnold is forced to ride his stallion into the air, and with a torrential swing, Arnold manages to cleanse the city of the spirit. In the aftermath, Cry and the girls are surprised to learn a lightning spirit attacked the town last night, and it seems the heroes that saved the town are resting nearby. Cutting over to Arnold, he is pissed that Cry has yet to show himself, and to make things worse, it seemed they barely missed Cry as Cry's gang just left Elon Town. On the road, Liz and Citri are seen arguing over who gets to sit next to Cry, and seeing as Liz isn't budging, Citri offers to use her dangerous factor vial and conjure up a monster for Liz to snuggle with. Intervening, Cry grabs and tosses the vial outside, only to remind the sisters to play nice, especially since they'll be reaching the town of Gula soon, where there will be famous chocolate parfait treats for them. Tino refuses to believe Cry's words, as she wonders what trials are in store for them. As for the dangerous factor vial, it seems to have spilled out onto the floor, and strangely, there seems to be an army of orcs planning something. Arriving at Gula, we notice an army of hunters gathering, and with Citri donning a cute expression, she learns that an army of orcs have gathered near the mountains of their town. With Liz joining in to help extract more information, Tino stresses that the chocolate Cry was talking about before was code words for orcs, and to make things worse, Cry asks if Tino wants to buy some chocolate parfaits with him tomorrow. Seeing as the sisters won't allow Tino to refuse an invitation from Cry, we cut to later that night where Black, White, and Gray are camping alongside Killiam and Drink. The three hunters are annoyed they can't escape due to their collars, but out of nowhere, Killiam and Drink glare at the nearby mountains, and in the blink of an eye, they dart off into the night. Following the orcs, they're suddenly seen being attacked by Drink and Killiam, and seeing as the two monsters before them are too strong, the orc leader orders for retreat. Following Cry, it seems he has another home base in the town, and whilst Liz snoops through Citri's belongings, Tino despairs at the thought of having to fight some orcs tomorrow. Back with Arnold and the others, it seems they've stumbled onto the vial Cry tossed out his carriage, but right on cue, we see the horde of orcs Killiam and Drink scared away appear before the gang. Freezing for a second, the orc's eyes turn a deep red, having been affected by the dangerous factor vial, leading the orc leader to let out a horrifying roar. Immediately, Arnold and the gang are forced to brawl against the swarm of enraged orcs, but switching over to Cry, we see him leisurely enjoy some ice cream, only to head off to lay in bed. Creepily, a painting of Satiri watches Cry from above, and when Liz asks Cry if they can share a bed tonight, we see Citri pop out of her own painting only to prevent Liz from making any moves on Cry. Deep in battle, Arnold and the gang are seen being overwhelmed, but out of nowhere various sparks light up the orcs and the battlefield, revealed to be a fire spirit that is gathered before the gang. The next day, we see Cry and Tino at a restaurant preparing to order some chocolate parfait, but Tino fears that the people around her are secretly orcs in disguise. Seeing Tino stressed, Cry reassures Tino that nothing bad will happen to her, but Tino cries that she can't enjoy herself as she doesn't want to undertake another one of Cry's trials. At that moment, some other customers mention how the nearby orcs have been mysteriously vanquished, news that excites Tino as she can finally relax. But later that day, we see the town celebrating and thanking Arnold and the gang for saving the town. With neither Arnold nor Chloe knowing what is happening, we follow Cry and the girls walking past the crowd, and upon seeing Arnold being celebrated as the town's hero, the gang couldn't help but thank Arnold before they leave. Pissed, Arnold tries reaching Cry, but sadly a swarm of flirtatious women swarm Arnold to thank him. Back on the road, Cry wonders how he can avoid Arnold's tracking, and seeing as they need a shortcut, they'll be heading off the main road and over the Galist Mountains instead. Tino is immediately frozen stiff as the Galist Mountain is filled with dangerous creatures, all whilst Arnold and his party are seemingly stuck at Town Gula. With some time passing, we see Tino mortified by the number of monsters they've encountered and slayed whilst heading north, and interestingly Citri reports that they're entering lost giant demon territory. Cry hears that most people that encounter such demons never come back alive, and seeing as Liz is curious as to how strong these demons are, Cry allows Liz to spar with the monsters roaming outside. Excited, Liz immediately calls on Tino to get ready, and before Cry can hand Tino the creepy mask, Tino swiftly flees the carriage. The next morning, we see Liz satisfied by her training yesterday. And luckily, it seems neither Tino nor Citri's attendants were harmed last night. But interestingly, the gang appear before a fork in the road. Suspiciously, one path is well lit and has an arrow pointing down it, whilst the other looks gloomy and scary. But before anyone can offer suggestions, Cry reasons they should head down the well-lit path. And strangely, there's something watching the gang. Switching over to Arnold and the others, they seem to be lost, but Chloe and the others fear that Cry is testing them, something Arnold questions as well. That evening, Cry is happy that they have yet to encounter any more monsters, and with Cry declaring they'll set up camp for the night, leading Citri to offer to cook for the gang. Gratefully, Cry says he'll fetch some water for the gang, sparking Liz to join him. Heading to a nearby pond, Cry fetches some water, only for Liz to spring out of the pond having slain a massive fish. As the sun sets, Cry helps straighten Liz's hair, whilst Liz promises to grow stronger and train Tino, and with the mood right, Liz prepares to make a move. Out of nowhere, Liz becomes pissed having detected a creature nearby, and when we cut back to the camp, we see a horrifying monster appear. As the creature easily blocks Killiam's punch, we see Tino try to cut down the monster, but it blinks away to evade, only to return to pummel Tino. Before Tino is squished, Liz appears blocking the blow, plus the gang identifies the creature to be a lost giant demon. Citri suspects that the demon purposely led them down the well-lit path and onto its territory, and with the demon grabbing and tossing a fiery stone at Cry, we see Liz intercept the blow. Annoyed, Liz pitches a throw of her own, and instantly the creature is blown back. But sadly, the sisters know that such a demon won't be slain so easily. The girls reason that Ansem and Lucia would be a massive help when dealing with such monsters, and seeing as the demon will flee and pursue them after some time. The gang reason they should start moving. Right on cue, we see the injured demon recover from its wounds, and as we cut over to Arnold, we see him enraged, having noticed a message left behind by Liz asking him to move down the same path as them, a challenge Arnold accepts. As Cry and his party head deeper down their route, Citri remembers that the lost giant demons love torturing their prey, so Citri reasons they should set up some bait to lure the demon away. Tino gets scared, fearing she'll be used as bait, but luckily Citri offers up a dangerous factor potion that may attract other monsters for the demon to fight. Funnily enough, it seems their plan failed as the potion was blown all over the carriage by some wind, and with the gang needing to rest, they stuff themselves, having just slayed all the creatures that tried attacking their carriage. Off to the side, Tino tries suppressing her worries, but she gets jump scared by the mask, and luckily, it's just Cry handing Tino the mask in case of emergencies. At the same time, we see Drink pestering the 3 captured hunters, and seeing as they don't want any trouble, Black agrees to refill Drink's bowl with some water. Coincidentally, Black notices Citri showing off a key, and as we zoom out, we see the giant demon spying on them. Switching over to Arnold, his party has appeared on the mountain above Cry's camp, but Arnold fears that there are too many monsters nearby to confront Cry's party. At that moment, Arnold spots Liz's silhouette leaping through the trees, and as Arnold rushes after Liz, it's revealed to be the demon who had morphed into Liz. The demon seems to be trying to get Arnold and Cry's party to fight, and as we cut over to Cry, he runs into the demon who has morphed into Arnold. Immediately, the demon tries agitating Cry and his party, but funnily enough, the sisters and Cry reason that Arnold is a little angry. Seeing Arnold throwing a fit, Cry offers to apologize for running away, but right on cue, the real Arnold appears, a little weirded out to see a clone of himself. Locked on a Cry, Arnold takes a swing at Cry, but luckily Cry's safety ring blocks the lethal blow, and with Killiam and Drink appearing behind the demon, the sisters declare they knew the demon was a fake all along. Whilst the others engage the demon, Arnold is seen fixated on fighting Cry, and as Arnold infuses his blade with lightning, Cry is suddenly seen rushing to tackling Tino to safety. Miraculously, neither Cry nor Tino was hurt by the impact, and with Arnold demanding Cry draw his sword, Tino can't help but feel pathetic for standing idly by. As Arnold rushes Cry, Tino suddenly slide tackles Arnold, only to declare that she'll fight Arnold in Cry's place. Arnold warns Tino that she is too weak, but Tino rebuttals by placing on the creepy mask, and in an instant Tino's vision becomes blurred as the mask consumes her. This time it seems Tino is able to speak and command the mask, and with a heart of steel Tino begins to undergo a transformation, all whilst a surge of power emanates from her body. Liz is impressed by Tino's transformation, and having taken on the name of Super Tino, Tino begins her brawl with Arnold. Moving forward in time, we see Tino awaken on Cry's lap. And sadly, it seems Arnold was still able to defeat Tino while she had the mask, but it seems Arnold and the others were left in charge of the regenerating demon, whilst Cry and the sisters fled the scene. Tino is embarrassed as she lost after undergoing such a powerful transformation, but Cry reassures Tino that losing is a part of growing, words that make Tino promise to grow stronger. Tino finally builds up the courage to ask if she can join the grieving souls in the future, and with Cry and the sisters satisfied by Tino's conviction, Tino asks if Cry has ever lost a battle before, but Cry confidently says he hasn't. Back with Chloe and the others, they've managed to finish off the demon, but Chloe can't help but be amazed by Cry's trials as they are pushing Arnold and the others to become stronger. A is annoyed they've lost sight of Cry, but Chloe declares she knows where they may find them, cutting to a few hours later where Arnold and the gang are standing before Night Palace. Chloe says Night Palace is a level 8 vault the Grieving Souls has been trying to tackle, and with Arnold dead set on teaching Cry a lesson, the gang choose to enter the vault, but it's revealed that Cry and his party had actually changed routes and headed towards a hot spring instead. In the town of Souls, we follow Tino admiring Citri's figure, and with everyone focused on washing away their sorrows in the hot spring, we switch to Cry rejoicing. Cry can't help but admire the hot spring, whilst his hounding chain roams freely, and there seems to be a lack of customers at the hot spring due to a bandit gang terrorizing the nearby Gladys territory. At that moment, Cry hears someone humming nearby, and upon heading outside, Cry notices a creature bathing in the hot spring. Cry remembers Liz asking if he would hunt down a hot spring dragon with him, but having refused the offer prior, Cry now reasons that the being before him is simply someone's pet. Staying calm and marching towards the same bath, Cry nonchalantly enters the waters whilst the creature glares at him, but suddenly the dragon attacks Cry. Cutting over to Tino, she is seen washing her hair when Citri offers to scrub her down, but before Citri can do anything weird, the girls suddenly detect a dragon nearby, and it seems Cry had survived the attack thanks to his safety rings. As Cry tries calming the dragon down, he suddenly notices Tino and Citri appear, and seeing as this is a perfect test, Citri orders Tino to slay the dragon. Instantly, the dragon unleashes a water beam that disperses the girls, and although Tino is a little embarrassed, she chooses to steal her resolve as she rushes the creature, but suddenly her towel wrapped around her gets undone. Within a few minutes, the girls manage to knock out the dragon, but Liz can't help but tease Tino for having such a hard time against a baby dragon. But since Tino did knock down a hot spring dragon, it would technically mean Tino has the title of Dragon Slayer now. Whilst the gang discuss if they should butcher and eat the dragon can't help but sweat profusely, and as an act of desperation it clings to Cry, all whilst Gray spies on the gang. Later that day, whilst Cry plans some sightseeing activities, he bumps into Gray, who seems frightened, and suddenly Gray is seen handing Cry a key. It's revealed that Gray alongside Black and White had managed to steal the key to their collars, and whilst Black and White fled to the Gladys territory, Gray himself stayed behind. Not too concerned, Cry reveals that the men are free to do whatever they want, and as Cry and the girls explore the town that evening, they notice a hole dug in the ground supposedly meant to set up another hot spring. But it seems some bandits have halted the construction, and to make things worse, all the stores are closed. Luckily, there is a store selling dragon and demi-human buns, and interestingly, Citri has been conducting some research into these demi-human beings. Picking up some sweets, Cry munches on a red bean bun, but out of nowhere an injured Arnold appears before them. Before he can say anything, Arnold falls unconscious, and with Cry meeting up with the remainder of Arnold's party, he is shocked to hear they entered the Night Palace. When Arnold and his gang first entered, they were surprised to see so many phantom corpses, But when some high-tier phantoms appeared, Arnold and his gang were no match for them. As a last-ditch effort, Arnold had smashed the ground to create an opening to flee, and whilst the phantoms searched for them, Arnold and the others hid under the corpses of the deceased phantoms, and with Arnold's spear heading things, everyone managed to escape alive. In the present, 8 and Chloe beg Cry to forgive Arnold and stop his 1,000 trials, but funnily enough, Cry has no idea what they're talking about. Changing topics, Chloe hands Cry the request from Earl Gladys, and with Cry mentioning how he won't be accepting the quest, Citri reads that the mission requires Cry to vanquish the Barrel Bandit gang. The Barrel Bandits are a group of around 100 people that have relocated to the north, and before Gilbert can ask why Cry isn't accepting the mission, Liz and Citri mention how the bandits must have fled by now, seeing as they heard Cry was nearby. Writing this assumption, Cry reasons he should enjoy his vacation, but at the same time Arnold seems to be in a nightmare, and sadly, a phantom version of Cry seems to be haunting Arnold. Waking up, Arnold hears that Cry had visited recently, but feeling sorry for himself, Arnold leaves his room through a window. Roaming the streets, Arnold feels pathetic and empty for not managing to complete Cry's trials, and needing to calm himself down, Arnold enters a hot spring, but coincidentally, he bumps into Cry. Boiling with rage, Arnold prepares to attack Cry, but having made up his mind, Arnold declares he'll return even stronger. That night, Arnold is seen ordering his party to make preparations to leave tomorrow, but at the same time, Cry passes by the massive hole whilst returning to his room. Out of nowhere, a bright glow can be seen, and with several strands of hair making way for a mysterious creature to appear, it suddenly appears before Cry. Not wanting any trouble, Cry says he is sleepy and tries fleeing the scene, but suddenly the creature wraps Cry in its hair only to disappear back into the hole. The next day, Tino is seen asking the sisters where Cry is, and whilst the sisters play some table tennis, they remind Tino that Cry is the strongest for a reason. At that moment, Liz is seen smacking the ping pong ball as Strange Girl, all whilst Chloe and the others wish Arnold well, as it seems they'll return a challenge Cry once they're stronger. With Arnold turning to leave, a strange man suddenly attacks Arnold. As for the Strange Girl, it seems she was easily able to block the ping pong ball. Recognizing the movements, the girls identify the girl to be a ninja, and with the girl unveiling its true form, she demands to know where Cry is. Refusing to answer, the girls ready themselves as the ninja duplicates itself, and right on cue Killiam and Drink appear as reinforcements. Sadly, once the ninja mentions how they've taken hostages, both Citri and Liz instantly surrender as they know Cry would have done the same thing. Outside, several beings wrapped in bandages have surrounded Arnold and his party, and having laced their attack with a poison, the men successfully knock down Arnold, revealing themselves to be the Barrel Bandits. The surrounding town is suddenly encased by rocky pillars, only for Jeffroy and Carton Barrel to make themselves known. Carton says it was thanks to Black and White's capture that they were able to set up this trap, and with news of Cry being captured, Jeffroy heads to speak with Cry, all whilst Chloe seems to have escaped the bandits' capture. Luckily, it seems the bandits had mistaken Gray for Cry, and all whilst this happens, Cry is unconscious in a hole, all whilst the strange creature watches over him. Back at the bathhouse, we see the Barrel Bandit gang have gathered all the workers along with Cry's party and Arnold's gang, and sadly the sisters can't do anything since they are hostages. The others do stress that Cry and Chloe have gone missing, and seeing as Arnold has been poisoned, Steery can only strike his pressure points to help his body process the poison. Switching over to Cry, he is seen waking up in a cage, and upon seeing the demi-human that captured him, he quickly searches for a way to flee. Having found his Mirage form bracelet, Cry is seen taking on the appearance of the demi-humans around him, and when he tries asking them where they're taking him, it seems Ryu, the female demi-human, refuses to explain anything. Passing deeper into the cave, the gang enter into an ecosystem filled with lava, and as Ryu dons a throne, we see Cry suddenly tasked with dueling one of her guards. Luckily, Cry's safety rings block a lethal strike, and when Cry unveils his amulet, he manages to freeze the attacking monster before him thanks to Chris loading an offensive ice spell in the amulet. Sadly, Ryu simply orders her other guards to attack Cry, and having remembered Citri giving him a ring prior, Cry lets loose the spell inside the ring. Surprisingly, a thick smoke appears, and strangely the demi-humans afflicted by the smoke grow in size, an outcome no one expected. Back with Liz, she demands to be entertained, but upon hearing that the barrel bandits will begin executing hostages every 10 minutes until Cry shows himself, Liz simply breaks free from her restraints only to announce that she'll be cooling off in the hot spring. Before Liz can be stopped, a swarm of demi-humans emerge from the ground, and with the monsters attacking everyone they see, Citri uses the chance to heal Arnold only to task Arnold's party with freeing the hostages whilst her party deals with the leader. Just like that, Arnold and his gang suit up, but outside we see the barrel bandits overwhelmed by the appearance of the demi-humans, and to make things worse, Ryu and Cry appear, something that catches everyone's attention. Off to the side, the girls notice Cry next to Ryu, and with Citri able to understand what Ryu is saying, it seems Ryu has deemed Cry their king and are no longer afraid of hiding from a god. Whilst Ryu continues to glaze Cry, Citri can't help but glare at her, and at the same time Cry asks what Ryu is planning. Taking the lead, Liz calls out to Cry, but before Cry can explain what is happening, Citri recognizes the markings on Ryu's head to belong to a princess. Seeing Citri getting angry, Cry tries explaining things, but Citri believes Cry is betraying them and tossing them aside. Reaching her breaking point, Citri cries that Cry still owes her money, plus, if Cry wanted to be a king, he could have simply asked her, but right on cue Cry's disguise fails as his mana has been depleted. Pissed, Ryu kicks Cry aside, and with Citri forgiving Cry for leaving them, Ryu cries out to her cave people to begin rampaging as their king has disappeared. With such an order, the surrounding demi-humans begin to roar, but before the barrel bandits and Arnold's party can be overwhelmed, a massive tremble can be heard from the nearby volcano. With a blast of steam surging from the volcano, a massive dragon rears its head, a presence that prompts Ryu to leap towards Cry only to begin begging them to help. Citri realizes that the dragon must be the malevolent god Ryu, and her cave people are afraid of, and without warning the dragon unleashes a horrifying steam breath. Cutting over to Chloe, we see her attempting to escape the village undetected, but having run out of energy, she is seen calling for help only to faint. Back in town, it seems the dragon's breath has leveled the area where Cry and the sisters stood, and surprisingly Ryu is fine as well. When Cry asks Ryu to leave the area, she can't help but cling to Cry. As for her people, it seems the other demi-humans refuse to remain on the surface as they flee back underground. With the dragon charging up another breath, Ryu is seen clinging to Cry once more, but Liz suddenly spots something as she teleports towards the dragon. Surprisingly, Liz notices the smaller dragon they met prior calming down the massive dragon, and even convinces it to leave the scene. With everything ending well, Cry is praised for coming up with such a brilliant plan to track down the Barrel Bandit gang. But out of nowhere, Tino transforms into a frog, and strangely most of the Barrel Bandit members transform as well. Right on cue, a massive man smashes a hole through the pillars surrounding the town, and having appeared beside Jeffroy and Carton, Ansem, Luke and Lucia make themselves known. With Lucia using up a decent chunk of her mana to transform the bandits into frogs, Luke takes over and approaches the Barrel Bandits leaders for a chat, but this only excites Jeffroy and Carton, as they can now capture all the Grievers at once. Before Luke can say anything else, a swing from his wooden sword severs the enemy's arms, and when Cry meets up with everyone, he asks Ansem to heal anyone that has been injured. With Arnold arriving as well, it seems his party has all been turned into frogs, and when Cry asks Lucia to turn everyone back, Lucia cries that she wants to be praised as she managed to create a spell to turn people into frogs like Cry asked. As for turning everyone back, Lucia says Cry needs to slay the frogs, and with the snap of her fingers, Tino's frog body becomes consumed in flames only for Tino to revert back to her human form. Seeing Tino taking the chance to cling on to Cry, Liz and Citri glare at Tino, and with Arnold's members being reverted, we see the barrel bandits rounded up and sent away. With Arnold finally bidding farewell to Chloe, we see Luke asking more about the cave people and dragons that appeared, but seeing as 3 weeks have already passed since he left the capital, Cry says it's time to go home. Flashing forward into the future, Cry is seen standing in front of a god and having entered the Peregrine Lodge by accident. The entirety of the Grievers, except Cry, was knocked out. Back in the present, Cry and his party are seen returning to the capital, and with half of the party running ahead, Cry excitedly mentions how the White Blades party should be over by now. But Lucia says something happened at the capital whilst they were gone. In the capital, we notice the streets badly damaged, but Cry first hands out buns he purchased as souvenirs for his friends. Cry says Sven yelled at him when he returned, and seeing as Cry doesn't know why. Eva reveals that war broke out between Hidden Curse and the remnants of Akasha, whilst Cry was on holiday. Additionally, a mage from the Akasha faction summoned a lightning elemental, whilst Abyssal Inferno from the Hidden Curse party summoned a fire elemental to retaliate. But luckily, the elementals seem exhausted and didn't cause much trouble. As Cry and Eva sit down for some tea, Cry barely remembers Arnold and his party fighting a fire and lightning elemental as well. But interestingly, Eva mentions that the White Blades was pushed back 3 days due to the conflict, so Cry actually made it back just in time. Mortified, Cry asks if Ark can go in place of him, but sadly Ark has already been invited as well. Cry says he doesn't have formal clothes to meet the king, but Eva says Citri had already taken his measurements and a tuxedo has been prepared. Additionally, Cry has a +1, and Ansem is too big to attend the banquet, so Liz and Citri make their entrance in their new dresses. But both girls begin arguing over who will be his +1 when Tino chimes in. The sisters order Tino to be quiet, leading Luke to offer to join Cry as he wants to fight someone strong. Refusing to take any of them, Cry asks Eva for a favor, switching to later that night, where Eva has donned a nice dress. Eva says she'll do all the talking tonight, and as she helps Cry adjust his clothes, she notices Cry has brought some hot spring eggs to bribe the people at the party. As we zoom out, we see a cloaked figure observing the duo atop a building. And as we enter into the party, Cry's amazed at how massive the venue hall is. Cry also notices an aristocrat greeting one of the blue-haired maids. And seeing as it's his time to shine, Cry rushes over to deliver his hot spring eggs to the same maid. Immediately, the girl gets frightened, leading the surrounding knights to surround and apprehend him. It's revealed that His Majesty Roderick Atal Zabridia has a daughter, and it's coincidentally the blue-haired maid, Myrina Atal Zabridia. As Sir Franz scolds Cry for giving the princess such a strange gift, Eclair suddenly interjects, declaring that Cry was the one that abolished the Akashic Towers, and seeing as Eclair is vouching for Cry, the knights stand down. Off to the side, we see Gark and Ark observing the commotion, and when things have calmed down, Cry personally thanks Eclair for saving him. Cry promises to return the favor, but when he brings up being unable to return the cursed mask, Eclair gets scared only to walk off. At the same time, we notice Abyssal Inferno and a friend watching Cry, and with the king making his entrance, he makes a short speech only to ask everyone to loosen up and enjoy the party. Just then, Cry notices Citri is standing with the crowd, and to make things worse, it seems Liz and Tino have snuck under one of the tables. Funnily enough, Lucia has donned the disguise of a maid, and sadly Luke had been captured as he broke out of his knight disguise. As for Ansem, he has shrunk himself and hidden in a suit of armor. Cry hears that the king's daughter acting as a maid was a test created by one of Ark's ancestors, Solis Rodan, and at the same time Cry is seen handing food over to Liz and Tino who are under the table. Eva says Cry should introduce himself to the royal family whilst he can, but out of nowhere Franz calls out Cry for sneaking food around. And interestingly, before Franz can look under the table, Cry points out a strange hooded figure. In the blink of an eye, Liz appears from the table only to kick the intruder in the stomach, leading Luke to toss his wooden sword to pin the person to the ceiling. And finally, Lucia binds the intruder in a stone coffin. As the finishing act, Ansem appears and begins increasing his size thanks to the fluctuating fortress relic he is wearing, and with a punch rails the intruder. Under the table, Tino wonders what she should do, but Citri appears having decided to hide alongside Tino, as it seems the intruder has vanished. With Gark and Ark staying alert, Abyssal suddenly casts a fire spell to track down the intruder, and with a massive explosion, a hole is blown into the side of the building. With things calming down, Cry takes the chance to snack on some chocolate, and as the party wraps up, Cry is happy he didn't have to meet the king in the end. On a park bench, Liz calls Citri useless for seducing a man to enter the party, but wasn't any help capturing the intruder. But before the sisters can argue some more, Citri says the attacker is probably a fox. Since Liz and Ansem mentioned that the attacker felt light, Citri says the nine-tailed shadow fox criminal organization must have been a mastermind, and they are on par with the snake organization the Grievers dissolved in the past. Elsewhere, Franz apologizes for not being able to capture the intruder, and with Franz promising to assess the dragon eggs Cry gifted the princess, the king wonders what Cry is thinking. Regardless, the king will have Ark strengthen their defenses, but outside we see the hooded figure grasping a strange glowing orb. The next day, Cry reads that a dragon attacked the capital, but thanks to Ark the creature was dispatched, and no one was hurt. Right on cue, Luke appears revealing that he managed to claim the dragon's head for himself before Ark defeated the dragon, and it seems some higher-ups want to meet Cry. As Cry and Eva leave, they meet with Gark and Abyssal only to hear from Franz that a crimson dragon attacked them last night. Franz utters that the hot spring eggs Cry brought were not normal. But luckily, everyone believes Cry has been framed, and it was thanks to the Grievers that the intruder didn't cause mayhem. Seeing as it's time, Franz unveils a shiny blue gem, also known as the Empire's greatest treasure that can see through all lies. Franz orders everyone to declare their loyalty, and with Cry and Abyssal being cleared of all suspicion, leading Franz to reveal that the criminal organization Fox is behind the attack last night. Franz says the king was originally meant to travel to Toyezin and needing Cry to help out. Franz gives Cry a rare relic as a reward, a job Cry immediately accepts as the relic is something he desires. At a training room, Lucia is seen watching Cry attempt to board the flying carpet relic he just received, and although the carpet continues to fling him away, Cry refuses to give up and ends up calling the relic Carpe the flying carpet. Lucia also reminds Cry to prepare for his assignment, and upon speaking with Eva, Cry hears that his party escorting the king will contain 5 people max, and it seems Cry has to attend and can't have Ark replace him. With a plan in mind, Cry visits Gark and attempts to get him involved, but Gark reminds Cry that such a mission is too important for a retired hunter like himself. Before Cry can recruit Kana, Gark kicks him out of the room, leading Gaina to help Cry find other high-level hunters, and interestingly the name Kechik Chaka comes up. Next up is Rosemary Pirapos, also known as Abyssal, who is glad to help Cry, but sadly she is banned from leaving the capital after blowing a hole in the king's palace. Abyssal says she also needs to wipe out the remaining Akashic Tower members, plus Abyssal takes the chance to praise Cry for exhausting the fire and lightning spirits she summoned whilst dueling an enemy mage. Although Cry has no idea what is happening, Art speaks up and wonders if another hidden curse member can help Cry, leading for Vice Master Telm Apocles, the level 7 hunter, to enter. Back at headquarters, Cry is worried that asking help from strangers is quite scary, so before he can wonder who else can join his team, Lapis and Chris appear. Chris immediately praises Cry for causing a commotion at the gathering the other day, and with a new candidate found, Cry asks Chris to join him for a mission, an offer Chris refuses. Before Cry can ask Lapis to join as well, Lapis shoves Chris towards Cry and orders Chris to accept, words that change Chris's mind. With 3 people recruited, Cry racks his brain for other people, but suddenly Citri appears offering to join. Cry says he can't recruit any Grievers as he can't take all of them with him. So Citri shows her Killium version Alpha, a new specimen she controls with a remote control. Citri reassures Cry that the new Killium can't betray him. And with Cry being the 5th member, they all report to Gark. With Franz annoyed at the lineup Cry picked out, he is reassured by Cry that none of the members are fox criminals, especially since none of them look like foxes. As Chris orders everyone to move things along, Franz reminds everyone that the king's safety is the utmost priority, but Chris could care less as she was only listening to Lapis's orders. Cry tries calming Chris down, but Chris begins demanding that Cry stop being lazy, and only after serving Chris some tea does she calm down. With Cry refusing to accept changes to his lineup, we cut to Citri and the Grievers who are plotting to assist Cry in the shadows, and it seems the Foxes are making their moves. Citri says the Killium Alpha on Cry's team will be their informant until they escort the king to the desert city of Toyezet, and it seems the Foxes are after the king's head. Luke fears that the 13-tailed fox from the Peregrine Lodge will be too much to stop even for the Grievers. But luckily they're talking about the 9-tailed Shadow Fox organization, and it seems there is no leads to track them down. The Grievers all agree to simply follow Cry and wait for an opening. And before Tino can ask to sit out of any mission, Liz forces Tino to tag along. Following Franz, he along with the king both wonder what Cry is planning, and although they've confirmed Cry is reliable with the Tear Relic, they can't help but trust in Cry's next move. Switching to Cry's storage room, he is seen retrieving an item for Lucia to recharge, and during the meeting time, Cry is weirded out by how Ketchachaka Monk looks. Cry holds back any criticisms towards the sketchy individual. Plus, when Chris arrives, she scolds Cry's casual fit during such a dangerous mission. When Franz piles on, he asks if Cry's fit is a relic, and it's revealed that his outfit is called Perfect Vacation, an item that adapts to calm the user's mood based on the environment. With all the chatter out of the way, Telm reports that they'll be riding iron horses around His Majesty's cart, which will be escorted by the Imperial Guards. Just like that, everyone sets off, but Chris asks where Cry's horse is, only to hear that Cry doesn't know how to ride one and will instead be using Carpe. Funnily enough, Carpe goes rogue and slams Cry into a nearby wall, forcing Cry to ride alongside Chris. Whilst riding, Chris forbids Cry from touching her as she is a noble elf, but when Cry falls from the horse, Chris gives in. With some time passing, Cry can't help but get sleepy due to his Perfect Vacation relic, leading to Cry falling from the horse again. That evening, we see the Grievers have taken out some hunters hired by the Fox Party, and luckily Cry's delays had bought them 2 hours of leeway. Having reached their first stop, Franz scolds Cry for causing so much trouble, and with even the carpet scared, it's forced to hide behind Chris. Chris reminds everyone that she'll protect everyone, but Cry does find it suspicious that nothing has yet to happen. Franz says since the king is involved, every step in action had been planned ahead of time, but Cry notices a picture of a dragon nearby, only to ask Telm to deal with any dragons if they randomly attack. With everyone weirded out, Cry is seen laying on Chris's sofa while she helps recharge all of Cry's relics. But on the roof, we see a mysterious figure holding a shiny orb. Cry takes the chance to nibble on some chocolates he believes was gifted to him by Citri. But out of nowhere, a dragon attack is sounded throughout the building. Springing to action, Chris readies her staff and drags Cry along. But in the corridor, the duo notice the surroundings completely frozen and a strange monster charging up an ice breath. Elsewhere, we see the Grievers questioning Citri's reason for summoning so many frigid dragons to the mansion Cry is staying at. But it's revealed that Ketchachaka is the mysterious figure atop the room calling for the dragons. With Ketchachaka revealed to be a member of the Foxes, we cut to Chris struggling to slay the icy dragon before them with fire. But with some knights holding off the beast, Chris and Cry rush to protect the king and Murina. With Ketchachaka Monk being revealed as a member of the Foxes, we follow Cry and Chris, relieved to see that the king and princess are unharmed, and fearing that Citri's may be punished, Cry blames the dragon attack on the Foxes. When the king and Franz ask when the next dragon swarms will attack, everyone suddenly is alerted to an incoming wave of dragons, something that leads Cry to step up. As Cry moves onto the balcony, he readies himself to use another one of Lucia's stored spells in his amulet, but sadly, he forgot to bring the amulet. With the wave closing in, Cry's Perfect Vacation relic calms him down, and suddenly the dragons all unleash a beam of water. At that moment, a light barrier is erected to block the attacks, and whilst Franz commends Cry for putting up a priestly barrier, Cry looks over to see Ansem on an adjacent balcony be revealed to have saved him. Whilst Ansem falls to the ground, various dragons are dropping dead, only for a massive swirl of water to begin engulfing the dragons. Franz cries that this is Telm, aka counter cascades doing, and it seems this time Telm has stepped up and engulfed all the dragons in a water ball only to compress and crush the attacking dragons. Both Franz and the king are still amazed at how strong Telm is. But before Cry can mention Ansem as well, the gang notice a masked fox appear behind Telm. Cry calls the person an imposter as the masked fox looks different from the previous foxes he has encountered, and as Telm fire water projectiles at the being, the person easily slips the attacks only to dash in close. Having anticipated this, Tel had already prepared a massive surging projectile that consumed the fox person, but in the aftermath no sign of their body was found. Reporting the masked disappearance to the king, Telm can't help but glare at how smug Ketchachaka looks. But suddenly Chris brings up Cry's predicting of how the attacker was an imposter. With everyone asking to know more, Cry tries feigning ignorance, leading the gang to wonder if they should continue such a dangerous mission. Before the king can issue a command, Cry realizes that if they return and the frigid dragon attack is revealed to be Citri's doing, he'll have to do extra work to set her free. Cry therefore asks for the king to continue moving forward, and their forces are still stronger than the enemies. Words that annoy Ketchachaka, and to top things off, Cry boldly declares that no other dragons are going to attack them. As Cry speaks loudly to ensure Citri heard him, we cut to later that night, where Ketchachaka is seen a little frightened at Cry's ability to erect the priestly barrier, plus Cry was seen to be taunting him earlier. But seeing as he can only follow his leader's orders, Ketchachaka admits that his rebellion sphere consumes quite a lot of mana every time it's used. As the gang continue their journey the next morning, Chris scolds Cry for messing around all the time, plus it's annoying that Cry is still riding with her. Cry tries explaining that Carpe won't listen to him, but suddenly Cry clings tightly onto Chris only to cry out that Carpe has disappeared. Elsewhere, Tino is seen fleeing from a dragon, leading Liz to intervene and slay the dragon with a kick. The Grivers suspect that the foxes are using a relic to summon the dragons, and it seems the surrounding monsters are being herded like sheep by the dragons, leading Citri to order Luke to slay all the dragons before them, as ordered by Cry. Switching to Ketchachaka, he smirks as he had ordered for more dragons to appear, but funnily enough, only the monster the Grievers left behind appear. Ketchachaka is surprised, and to make things worse, it seems Cry has disappeared, but Cry and Chris only retrace their steps to fetch Carpe, but whilst they were gone, the knights succeeded in fending off the monsters. Before Franz can scold Cry for disappearing, the king steps in to assess the situation. But suddenly Franz hears something strange has happened nearby. Visiting the location, the gang notices a massive dragon has been frozen in place. Something Cry knows is thanks to Lucia. With Cry asking for everyone to continue moving along, the gang all stumble onto various dragon corpses littered along their path, but they make it to their next stop by sundown. Franz and the king both agree that there must be a mole amongst them, but it seems Cry is trustworthy, so they'll have Cry guard them personally. With Chris helping to recharge Carpe, Telm is weirded out at how nonchalant Cry is, plus Ketchachaka says he'll simply assassinate the king if he gets close enough. Chris says she has finished charging Carpe in one of Cry's rings. But sadly, Cry needs the remainder of his rings to be recharged, plus he needs Chris's help for something tomorrow. That night, Telm returns to his room, only to begin suspecting that Cry is the traitor amongst them. The next day, Ketchachaka watches Cry and Chris from his room, but suddenly Telm asks to speak with him. Sitting down, Telm declares that Cry is a fox, but with no evidence, Telm wants Ketchachaka's help to expose him. Whilst Ketchachaka tries not to freak out, Telm says they'll use a password to communicate, and with a plan set up, we follow Cry purchasing some of the town's famous nuts. As Chris follows Cry, we see Ketchachaka following our duo, only to wonder if Cry is indeed a high-ranking Fox member, as this would make sense as to why Ketchachaka didn't know such information prior. Along the way, Chris teases Cry for loving sweets so much, all whilst Ketchachaka realizes how coincidental it was for Cry to choose him as a team member, even though they've never met before. As Cry returns home, Chris says she'll be taking some of his snacks, but sadly it seems some of the Amy's nuts block magic and greatly hinder Chris's powers. Suddenly, Telm and Ketchachaka ask to speak with Cry privately, And whilst Cry accepts, he chooses to stuff himself with nuts. Telm starts by asking if Cry has a tail, something that shocked Cry as in the past. Cry was given an object full of mana, equivalent to the 13th tail of a fox god, deemed the fox god's final tail. Cry asks how Telm knows, but Telm simply begins interrogating Cry to confess to being a fox, but Cry is confused. Along the way, Cry coincidentally says the code word only foxes would know, leading Telm to reintroduce himself as a 7th tail amongst the foxes, whilst Kechachaka is a 5th tail. Confused, Cry says he is a 13th tail, something that throws Telm off as there are only 9 tails, but Cry reassures everyone that since they all have tails they should work better together. With Cry allowed to leave, he heads to his room, but suddenly Liz is seen waiting for him. As Liz rushes to embrace Cry, Cry reminds Liz he is on a mission, and with Chris entering the hallway to confront Cry, Liz is seen swiftly hiding under the sheets. Chris demands Cry fix her, but Cry says Chris will recover if she sleeps, but suddenly Chris notices someone hiding behind Cry. Making something up, Cry says it's simply a ghost, and with Cry opening the window and hugging Liz, Liz manages to escape undiscovered. Chris refuses to believe that a ghost has appeared, but when Kechachaka and Telm appear, they go along with Cry's lie and convince Chris to head to bed.